Ugh.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Archaeo Viking. Today we have a very, very, very special video, which I'm joined by my friend and fellow archaeologist Morgan Kinney. And today we are going to talk about something that essentially should be having us all check the Christian hell to see if there are snowballs falling, because long time, very well known and very popular pseudoscientist and conspiracy nut Graham Hancock actually debated an actual archaeologist. Granted,
Yeah.
on the Joe Rogan podcast, which we have thoughts on, but it actually happened. So, and after that happened, every other archaeologist and their mother with a social media account or YouTube account has already talked about the debate. So I figured, fuck it, let's talk about it too
Let's
because
yeah,
yeah,
let's have a
yeah,
conversation about it. I'm gonna say, ladies
yeah,
and gentlemen, and all the folk listening,
yeah,
the she's, he's, theys, and everything else,
yeah,
pour yourself a drink for
yeah.
this one because this is so bad.
It is. It
And
is.
it's ugh.
Yeah. So one the first thing I want to address. So, and this is something that several archaeologists on social media, uh, YouTube and TikTok and such have already addressed. I myself have had to address, even to other archaeologists, is that there is a small subset of archaeologists who have come out and said, well, why even bother debating Graham Hancock at all, or
Well,
pseudoscientists and pseudo-archaeologists at all, because it
Dane, real
quote,
quick.
yeah,
Real quick,
yeah,
because I have a sneaking suspicion someone is going to say, "Oh, an archaeology podcast." And I'm going to walk into this, and they're
yeah,
not necessarily going to know.
who Graham
I'm
Hancock is,
I
yeah,
want to give them the benefit of the doubt. So
yeah,
let's just have a little bit of background
yeah,
for those who don't know. Graham Hancock is what he likes to refer to himself as as a journalist. Well, what's the exact term he uses?
uh,
Um, Investigative journalist.
yeah,
Okay.
investigative journalist and a renegade scholar,
And a
yeah,
renegade scholar. Okay.
yeah,
So Graham Hancock was pretty unknown until 1995.
yeah,
And that's when he came out with a book called Fingerprints of the Gods. And the long and the short of that book is that the indigenous peoples of the Americas did not create their civilizations themselves, but they were gifted the information and the knowledge and the guidance to create agriculture and monolithic structures and civilization as we understand it
mm-hmm.
by and I quote, an ancient, globe spanning, lost civilization that coincidentally disappears at the end of the Ice Age.
Yeah,
This, of course, comes out. Um, Lots of people are like, you're talking about Atlantis. Lots
yeah,
of people go, this is the result of the biblical flood.
yeah,
Graham Hancock packages as this is something that he has discovered because he, as an investigative journalist, has looked at 150 years at that point, close to 200 years of archaeology, and gone, all of the professionals are wrong.
yeah,
When it archaeologists kind of pushed back against it and said, where are you getting this? This is just the white god hypothesis,
yeah,
which is an extremely racist and colonially driven belief system from the 1500s when the Spanish were in South America.
yeah,
And, others pointed out that it's essentially just a regurgitation of an equally racist book from the 1880s by a guy named Ignatius Donnelly,
yeah.
whom Graham Hancock, like, page 11, extols much praise to Ignatius Donnelly.
Mhm. He also borrows heavily from the mound builder myth of the 1800s, which Ignatius
Yep.
Donnelly himself was a part of.
Yep.
But Graham Hancock has,
It,
even in as recently as his most recent documentary on Netflix, Ancient Apocalypse, talks about an ancient lost race
yeah,
of mound builders that are responsible for the mounds.
exactly. Anyway, Graham Hancock writes this book, and he gets a lot of pushback from people who actually do know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
Not only is he getting pushback from people who actually know what they're talking about in the sense of professional archaeologists, He's getting pushback from the descendant cultures,
Yeah.
indigenous peoples in the Americas, going, pump the brakes. That's not true. This is our history. This is where we come from. And not only are you saying that, oh, no, we didn't, you're encouraging people to believe that.
Hmm.
And Graham Hancock is, I'm gonna give him this. He's a hell of a writer.
Yeah.
You can be a creative writer, but not a good one.
He's a good salesman,
He's a
especially
great
with
salesman.
yeah.
And he knows how to get people to really, really back him,
Yeah.
even if they don't know what he's talking about.
Mhm.
And using that bit of fancy speech and all that stuff, he has managed to appeal to a certain group of people and build a lot of what he has to say about these things on the idea that archaeology is out to get him.
Yeah.
That this is some sort of cabal, some conspiracy. As a result, he's gotten on TV on the History Channel for 20 years now. He's
Yeah.
been on Ancient Aliens. Any talk of civilizations underwater, he's been on
Yeah.
saying, here's what it is. And when it comes to actual proof, those TV shows don't actually show you anything.
Nope.
They're there for entertainment. They're not educational. What people forget is that Graham Hancock actually did a documentary for the BBC in the 90s, and the BBC threatened to sue him over it because he essentially put up a bunch of stuff as an educational show with no verifiable fact.
Yeah.
And scholars in Europe were like, pump the brakes. What is this crap?
Yeah.
His newest show, Ancient Apocalypse, is again one of these shows that came out on Netflix. And it was, if you watch the show, every single episode is 20 minutes
Yeah.
of archaeology's out to get me.
Yeah.
Archaeology doesn't want you to know the truth.
Yeah.
And what he conveniently doesn't show is the fact that archaeologists like myself and Dane,
Mhm.
spitball, how many actual archaeologists are on TikTok?
A lot.
I'm going to say at least
Yeah.
1,500
Yeah.
that are like practicing in the field, not academics. I'm
Yeah.
talking to actual dirt people.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you also have the academic contingent. You
Yeah.
also have the educators who are on YouTube, on the BBC, on television that is not in the United States, and
Yeah.
they're all like, what he's saying is absolute garbage. Not because we don't like him, because you literally can't say there's no proof of this thing, and that's proof that it exists.
Yeah.
Which,
exactly.
take a drink, because we're going to talk about that a lot.
Yes, and that's what leads me into what I was gonna say is so because of that, a lot of and it's still a minority, but it's a vocal minority of not just archaeologists, but archaeologists are among them. People who are like, well, why bother go on and debate Graham Hancock, or as we like to call him, Graham Fuckwit, who
he's got a litany of names.
Yeah,
When Ancient Apocalypse came out. When this TV show first came out, the Society of American Archaeology,
they
penned a letter, and they sent it to Netflix, and they were like, guys, seriously, this is not a documentary. What he's saying is not backed up by science. This is, I mean, you're packaging it incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
And the pushback that Graham Hancock, of course, and his minions, his fanboys, his fan folk.
Yeah.
Graham Hancock, of course, issued a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm right. Look, this is proof they're out to get me.
Yeah.
And then he issued a challenge that he would, because he's been on the Joe Rogan show a number of times talking this conspiracy stuff, and Joe Rogan absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
Mind you, Joe Rogan takes horse dewormer as a cold medicine.
Yeah.
We'll touch on that later.
Yeah.
But Graham Hancock issued a call for an archaeologist to come debate him.
Yeah.
And we were and Dane's absolutely right. he's met with the people who are like, why give him the satisfaction of someone actually coming up and talking to him?
Yeah, and the issue that they always bring up is like, oh, it's going to quote validate him, and it's
Yeah,
like, but the thing is, he's already been validated. As we talked
yeah.
about, he's already published a number of books. He's had a number of documentaries. He's been a guest on a number of documentaries. He's,
He's
on the Joe Rogan podcast, a wildly popular podcast,
I think when
several
people are
times.
afraid of him being validated, the
Yeah.
ones who are thinking that way are like, it's going to validate him in the world of science.
And it's like, but it's
It's
like,
not.
it's not. And the thing is, for his fans, he already is
He's already
validated.
validated. He's
Yeah.
validated in the public.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that did come up, and a lot of people have challenged me on this through my social
Yeah.
media and stuff,
Yeah.
is that, well, why don't you debate him? And again, we came back to well, it would just validate or would give him a talking point. We'd have to acknowledge him, and that
Yeah.
means that he's real. But the other thing is
Yeah.
that, and a lot of people don't know this because, of course, it doesn't ever show up. Graham Hancock has like, forgive the language today. We're going to use a lot of fun grown-up stuff.
A lot of it.
He has an absolute hard-on for one archaeologist by the name of Flint.
Yes,
Stephen
Flint,
right? I think his name is Flint. Stephen?
No, his name is Flint. He said that I watched his video.
No, Stephen Flint.
Oh, Stephen Flint. Yeah.
Yeah,
Stephen
Flint. I hope that's right. His surname is Flint. That's how I know.
Yeah,
and
Stephen
Flint like came out, and I think he came out with like this scathing rebuke of something a long time ago, and Graham Hancock hasn't been able to let it go.
Yeah.
And a while went by, so much so that when the timeline came to the crunch point of he's going to debate somebody, Hancock himself backed out of the debate because Flint was like, I'm not going to come play in your sandbox. It's full of cat piss.
Yeah.
Flint would not give him the time of day.
Yeah.
However, a number of archaeologists, including one who's going to have a drink of whiskey at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I typed in to Joe Rogan's show, I will debate him.
Yeah.
I will debate him. Now, I'm in the grand scheme of Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock, I am an absolute nobody.
Yeah.
I'm just an archaeologist who's worked for 2 government agencies and numerous years in private sector. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But see, it's like, that's like the road builder coming to educate the guy who designed the interstate system, or thinks he did. The actual steamroller driver coming in and saying, I'll debate you because I know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
No one wants to talk to the person with the dirty hands.
Yeah, exactly. And
also lots of us did that.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't give us the time of day.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, we've got this thing, and then Dibble comes up.
Yeah, exactly.
And
he had also Dibble also had he came prepared. He came with a lot of stuff that was provided to him by other archaeologists.
Oh, you mean like a professional?
Yeah, like a professional.
Shit.
Yeah, well, and so here's one of the things I want to say. So one of the reasons I have offered to debate people like Hancock and such before, but one of the reasons why and I say this having been the one who say this, like, well, it's not the issue of validating them. My issue with debating people like this is it's like, it's a waste of my time. I'm not going to change their fucking mind, and nor am I going to change the mind of their fans who already have not only they're well past. Let's put it this way: they're down towards the Titanic in terms of how deep they are. They're in the center of the earth. They are not going to come back up. So it's a waste of my time.
And we can also get to some of the stuff that's buried in that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Which goes outside of just archaeology into sociocultural stuff.
So with that, we're going to go to the actual debate with Flint Dibble. So Flint Dibble came very prepared, and there are so many talking points that happened in that thing that admittedly, neither me nor Morgan had the suicidal I was going to say suicidal tendency to blow our brains, out just watching a 5 hours long of people arguing in circles. But
And not even intelligently.
yeah, not even
I mean, that's the
intelligently.
thing.
But
Yeah.
we did, the thing is we didn't have to. Other archaeologists had already done it, and I did skip around in the video looking at in the original debate video looking at talking points. And the thing is, the talking points are not different than anything Graham Hancock already said. So
Yeah.
one of the things so see here. One of the things I love about him is he see here, let's find what I was looking for. Not that. Oh yeah, there you go. Have it this. One of the things
Oh.
he's talking about is the flooding. He and his one of his best buddies, Randall Carlson, who is totally not
Oh,
a fake
yeah.
geologist.
He's got like he's got geology degrees like Muammar Gaddafi had medals for valor.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Just lots of them from places you don't really know about and you can't ever find information on. Randall
so
Carlson is
yeah,
equally
yeah,
as loud on this. Nobody wants to listen to me. And
yeah,
we're all like, well, we've listened to you and we said, hey, can you show us
yeah,
where you get your information? And you screamed at us that
yeah.
we're being unfair.
But one of the things that one of the things that Hancock and Randall Carlson love to bring up, and Randall Carlson brought up multiple times, and so did Joe Rogan, is the massive flooding that wiped out this civilization. And the thing is, there's not so one of the things we want to look at, and Flint Dibble covered this. I don't think he covered it very well because he missed a little bit of an opportunity. He sort of let it slide. But the thing is, this idea of a massive flood is not supported by the evidence. There are multiple different papers, like this paper, dating of the late Pleistocene megafloods and Cordilleran ice sheet retreat in the northwestern United States. One of the things Randall
Where
Carlson
I
loves
live,
to, yeah,
by the way,
one of the
this
things
is like
yeah,
my archaeological stomping grounds.
yeah,
So when
and
they show up and
yeah,
talk about the Missoula floods,
yep,
I'm like, I'm here.
yeah,
I see it. There's
and
nothing.
yeah, yeah,
And that actually is a lie. Let me say that is a lie that there's nothing. There's
yeah,
plenty. There's
yeah,
plenty of human material culture that dates back to the glacial lake
yeah,
in Lake Missoula and the
yeah,
several times and like one or two times before it. That's because there is archaeological evidence of indigenous peoples being here
yep,
at least 20,000 years ago. You
yep,
know, in my stomping grounds in my backyard,
yep,
there are
yeah,
rock quarries that would be looking down on the lake, that would
yeah,
be on the shoreline of the
yep,
lake when the lake was here 10,000 years ago.
yep,
The typology of the lithics points to 10,000 years ago.
yeah.
So there's absolute evidence of people being here. It's not the evidence of what Graham Hancock wants,
No, and
which
Randall
is his
Carlson,
white civilization that
yeah,
taught everybody agriculture.
yeah, and
We can get to that.
Randall Carlson loves to say that the Scablands, for example, which are a big uh, area of multiple different rock
Mhm.
formations in uh, like Idaho and Utah and Washington, and the thing is, he likes to claim that it was, and this is what gets me. He likes to claim that it was a singular flood that caused this. That had, I believe the quote he said was more water than all of the rivers and lakes in the world combined, which is like that's a Herculean amount. But two,
Question.
yeah,
Did the DM allow for a role of create or destroy water for that much?
yeah,
Because where
seriously,
is that?
yeah.
Real
Where
quick
is that?
question.
Yeah.
Where is that massive volume of water?
Yeah. Well, not only that, the like this paper talks about, um, there wasn't just one flood that made the Scablands. It was multiple
Multiple.
floods, with the last one being roughly 14,000 years ago, which was actually before the an event that Carlson and Hancock love to do, beat over our heads with, the quote younger dryas impact hypothesis,
Yumber dryas.
which we'll get
We'll
into
get to.
we'll get to, but it's like that's about 2,000 years before it happened. Not to mention, you know, the big question that Dibble asked and was still not answered. He's like, okay, well, even with the flood, where did the stuff go? And Hancock was like, well, it got wiped away, or, we're not looking and things like that. The thing is, that's not true because of a little subfield of archaeology called underwater archaeology.
Yeah, just a little.
And
It's only 70-something% of the planet's
yeah,
surface, right?
yeah,
I mean, isn't that what it
exactly.
is? Oh,
Yeah.
huh. Hmm.
And there's multiple archaeologists who specialize in this. One of these people that I bring up is actually one of the people that helped Flint Dibble prepare, Jessica Cook Hale. And so I looked up some of her papers, and I have three right here. And this is just three. She has, of course, a whole list of papers that she did. But let's
When
take a
is
look.
her work ever cited
Yeah,
in any of the information that Graham
yeah,
Hancock or Renner
yeah,
Carlson throws out there?
yeah,
Because a
exactly.
good investigative journalist would
Yeah,
cite all of his sources and look at every single avenue of information. You
yeah.
don't want a Geraldo Rivera moment.
Nope. And actually, and one of the reasons I picked this paper is because, the end of the last ice age is when the civilization disappeared and all of it got mysteriously wiped out. Let's look at the abstract of this paper. For one thing, this paper is Submerged Landscapes, Marine Transgression, and Underwater Shell Mittens, Comparative Analysis of Site Formation and Taphonomy in Europe and North America. So let's scroll down to the abstract. Oh, look at that. However, shell mittens are relatively rare before the mid-Holocene because most paleo shoreline before that are now submerged by sea level rise since the last glacial maximum. So she actually addresses in this paper late glacial maximum. And now, of course, we're not going to read this whole paper, but I will, cite these papers in the video. But let's go to another one of her papers. Let's see, evaluating archaeological efficacy of bathymetric LiDAR oceanographic context. So that's another thing I want to cover that
Ooh.
sort of connects to one of Graham Hancock's points is only 5%, air quotes, of, like, say, the Sahara and the rainforest and such has been surveyed, which is not true, has been
No.
excavated. But the thing is, we don't need to excavate everything. LiDAR is a nice little thing where you
LiDAR
can
is amazing.
take something and you can where's find a good example of this picture where you can so this is one of the things they found via LiDAR, but you can take a look and see, like, oh, here is a map that they generated via LiDAR and found archaeological sites
If you,
without
now,
ever
now if you
having to
look,
investigate. Yeah,
if you look, the LiDAR is picking up shadows in the
yeah,
mounds of dirt.
yeah,
This LiDAR is in the last, and here's the thing, because Graham Hancock also has shown throughout his TV show
yeah,
and stuff, is that
yeah.
he hasn't actually updated his knowledge about archaeology
No,
to cover the last 50 or so years.
yeah,
He's still operating on the idea that, in the 1960s when we didn't have any of this technology.
mm-hmm.
And that's his, oh, you guys just aren't using it. I use LiDAR every day.
Yeah, exactly. And
And
like
it's not
here,
just LiDAR
yeah,
for archaeology.
yeah,
The highway department uses LiDAR.
yeah,
Army Corps of Engineers looks at the flow of water and high water and low water, areas of erosion potential. All of these places that LiDAR gets used.
yeah,
In all, if it wasn't archaeology,
yeah,
even if archaeology wasn't looking, every single other developmental discipline on the planet in some way, shape, or form would have come across something.
yeah.
The amount of transoceanic
Mm,
fiber optics and pipelines to move fossil fuels.
yeah.
They are using LiDAR to
Yep.
map the best and cheapest route for their stuff. And there are, I think, what is it? There are 375 distinct surveys that have
Yep.
been done along just the original course of
Yeah.
the transatlantic cable,
Yep.
which was the magical telephone between the King of England and the President of the United States,
Yep.
which was laid in the 1870s.
Yep.
There has been so much underwater exploration looking for the things that will make the rich people richer and the ways to tie the planet together with fiber optics and electricity and fuel oil and
Mhm.
all this stuff that you would come across things.
Yeah.
There have been
And
shipwrecks that no one knows where they are, and you're never going to find them because they're a ship that's 800 feet long in the middle of the Atlantic somewhere, and no one
yep.
saw it sink. And not only are they finding these shipwrecks, they're using LiDAR, they're getting such detailed images of the shipwrecks, you can count the rivets. You can count the shells scattered on the deck. What they're not showing, though, is anything tied to what Graham Hancock says exists, which is a massive globe-spanning civilization.
Yeah.
That would have disappeared in the last 12,000 years ago.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the things I want, so we'll get to that in a second. But what they are finding with that in mind is, oh, look at that. They found, and this is off the coast of Georgia, where I live, spatial statistical analysis of coastal plain Paleo-Indian, which is the people who would have lived at the end of the Ice Age. Yeah. Paleo-Indian site distribution.
Pump the brakes. Are you saying that there's actual evidence of people living where there is now water?
Yeah, exactly. Which is,
oh my God.
There's going to be multiple. No. But
well, then that's why it's not in Graham Hancock's book.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like Paleo-Indian site distribution and paleoecology implications for the search of the offshore submerged sites in Georgia. And in it, they talk about discovery and excavation of submerged prehistoric sites that has potential to shed light on multiple questions concerning human responses to climate changes, changing climates and coastlines. But of course, it is hampered by multiple challenges, which Graham Hancock never admits the challenges that archaeologists have to face. He just bitches that they, never do it.
Yeah, he made like $7 million per show. How much archaeology could he fund as a rich Englishman?
Exactly. But
that's what they used to do back when Howard Carter found Tut.
Yep.
Lord Carnarvon gave him a bunch of money to go find it.
Yep, exactly.
And why doesn't Graham Hancock fund his own digs? Oh, right. He's too busy getting crunk.
Well, and like Jessica Cook-Hale says in this abstract, and also Irving Garrison, they say that one of the challenges is not the least of which is where precisely we should seek them across marine landscapes that are difficult to access and study. Landscape reconstruction using GIS analysis, in particular spatial statistical analysis that take human choices into account, are one way forward in addressing this problem. And then they present their preliminary results using this. And they state that they suggest a high probability for Paleo-Indian sites lies offshore along two watersheds. So, again, here we are using technologies that don't involve actual excavation, which Graham Hancock seems to have a massive hard-on for. Well, it's like there are other ways.
That's the only thing of archaeology that he knows is that archaeologists dig in the dirt.
Well, not only that. So, for one thing, there, and he says, well, like Flint Dibble talks about in the debate multiple times, he's like, "Where's the evidence?" And of course, Graham Hancock's like, "Well, you haven't found it. It's underwater," and it's like, okay, well, for one thing, multiple things have been found via underwater archaeology in shipwrecks. For one thing, one of the most famous ones, and a thing that was essentially the magical MacGuffin of the most recent
1903.
This
thing
Ancanthera mechanism
has been
has
been a question.
Yeah, it's been a question, but it's been an artifact that was found in a fucking shipwreck underwater in the Mediterranean, and there's multiple papers that have been written about it. Not just that, there's also for example, the fleet, the Mongol fleet that invaded Japan in the 1200s. There are multiple papers about the archaeology and the sites that they found underwater. They actually found some of the boats dating back almost 1,000 years ago off the coast of Japan.
There's artifacts being found that date back 100,000 years that you see only after not only underwater, but only after you have sifted through all of the fine dirt, and some of it is so fine it's almost seeable under a microscope, microflakes and stuff like that. The thing is that these artifacts come from either ancient humans, pre-civilizational humans, or hominid ancestors like Neanderthals and stuff. But you know what? They doesn't ever seem to be stuff pointing to the development of a civilization or a civilization existing. So you have an archaeological record that is pretty much uninterrupted and this massive thing that should be in it, and
Yeah.
evidence of it would be present, and evidence of it all being cleaned up would also be present,
Yeah.
seems to not exist. There's just this unbroken thing.
Yeah. Well, and then, and not just that. There's like, again, more underwater archaeology, because one of the things that Graham brought up is that stupid fucking rock formation off the coast of Japan that supposedly vaguely looks like a temple.
You know what
Yeah.
I've noticed about Japan
Yeah.
and many other islands in the Pacific? What are they made of? Does anybody know?
Stone.
What kind of stone?
Volcanic.
Oh,
Yeah.
so the everything in the Ring of Fire
Yep.
is made out of basalt largely.
Yeah.
And basalt, when it breaks up into chunks, not
Yeah.
unlike a cube or a rectangle, or in some places you get literally what is called columnar basalt.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
you have this rock formation that it cooks naturally that way. I mean, it develops naturally that way. So yeah, if you look at a pile of broken, vaguely square rock, which is entirely natural, yeah, somebody can look at that and be like, well, that looks like the debris pile after they knocked down a building. It
Yeah.
must be a building.
Yeah, exactly. Which, and the thing is, and the thing reason I brought that up is like,
We've talked about pareidolia, right?
yeah, exactly. Not yet,
Okay.
but yeah. But like the thing I want to bring up is like, he's talking about this thing that is not an archaeological site at all, is not a building, and he's completely ignoring things like this paper, which is talking about the Jomon period, a very long period, dating from of Japan, dating from 14,000 BC, ending at around 1,000 BCE or BC. And this paper in itself talks about underwater sites, that they examined about the origin of Japanese culture and civilization. Multiple, like here are the little bays they look
Mhm.
at. Here's another look at that. Oh, look at that. Multiple sites right here, these little circles under fucking water. And he's, ignoring all of this evidence for a culture that existed since 2,000 years before the goddamn Younger Dryas, and has been like, nope, this rock
But
formation.
yeah, so what we have here is a fantastic example
Yeah.
of conditioning your audience.
Yeah.
Because if we were to have this conversation cold turkey
Mm-hmm.
in a room, and let's say we're not talking about we don't mention Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
If we walked in and we presented a bunch of stuff to people who have no idea about archaeology, and we said, hey, here's evidence for this, here's evidence for this, here's evidence for this.
Yeah.
And then Graham Hancock is allowed to come in, but he's not talking about archaeology. He's not referring to us. He's just talking about the grand total. He
Yeah.
says, I have A, B, C, and D.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone says, what is your evidence? If he doesn't address every single thing that we talked about,
Yeah.
he's going to be left there holding an empty sack. And he's going
Yeah.
to be like, well, they haven't done any of the work.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that we absolutely have.
Yeah.
What he's
Exactly.
done, though, and we touched on this earlier,
Yeah.
is he does a really good job of making the people who read his books and the people who watch his show suspicious of us.
Yeah.
It's he like I said, he's great at talking. He goes and he says they don't want you to know the truth.
Yeah.
Who is they?
Yeah.
They're hiding stuff from you.
Mm-hmm.
What? Now, the difference between Graham Hancock stuff and stuff like these papers that we're talking about in this is accessibility, which I will admit
Yep.
is difficult sometimes.
It is.
It requires a little bit of effort, which we know people don't put
Want
forth
to do. Yeah.
that they need, very often. People
Nope.
like stuff easily
Mm,
presented. But the other
yeah.
thing is that, and Dane can tell you, and I'll tell you it if you go talking with any other archaeologist, some of this stuff is so dry,
Yeah.
it might as well be married to Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's great. I love it. But
So
yeah.
it's difficult for people who are not in the discipline to really follow and understand and absorb. I will tell you that I'm a mechanic. I mean
Yeah.
I work on cars as a hobby.
Yeah.
I don't own a diesel. I
Yeah.
don't own an EV.
Yeah.
I can tell you that if you call me up and say, hey, you know something about cars, can you come fix my diesel or my hybrid or my
Yeah.
EV? I'm not going to be able to tell you what it is
Yeah.
because those things are so much more complicated in some cases that
Yeah.
I have my little bit of knowledge, and this stuff is really hard to learn. And
Yeah,
there's not a lot of it
exactly.
online. And oh, I need to go to diesel tech school, or I need to go to a training program only for Tesla employees in order to
Yeah.
maintain and do
Yeah.
maintenance on a Tesla. I mean, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's avenues that don't necessarily control information, but you're going to get a lot more information if you follow an avenue. Us
Yeah.
as archaeologists, we've spent years studying this stuff. This is
Yeah.
our passion, our career. So when you present this to some random person on the street or random viewer on Netflix, you're not going to present something like a college lecture or a college paper.
No,
You are
yeah.
going to present something that is follows the formula of entertainment.
Yeah.
And that is like this sneak in sinister bit here that no one talks about, but we're going to try
Yeah.
to cover a little bit today, is that the stuff that Graham Hancock does, the stuff that is on the History Channel now,
Yeah.
is designed to entertain people.
Yep.
You watch watch a monster documentary, you
Yeah.
know. If you pay any attention to the monster documentary, you'll see the build up, and then they cut to a commercial.
Yep.
And what do? You sit there, you watch the commercial, and it's going to sell you a Ford F-150. It's going to sell you a new kid cereal, and there's,
Yeah.
here's the clothing that you absolutely have to have. And what's the one I've been seeing a lot? Old Spice. It's good
Yeah.
for your balls and your feet.
Yeah.
And then after 45, 50 seconds, 60 seconds of ads, it's going to bring you back. You're going to get a highlight again of all of this stuff kind of dressed up as being exciting and dramatic and all this.
Hmm.
And then something happens.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, what's gonna happen?
Yep.
Oh shit, what's gonna happen? All of these shows, if you line them up like that, they keep your attention, but they don't actually tell you anything.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that people don't want to have a you know massive academic discussion. They
No.
don't want to have to use critical thinking. They're sitting down, they're enjoying a drink or their dinner, they're out
Yeah.
with, they're with their partner, they're watching something for entertainment. They don't want to be like, oh, we have to learn something. They want to
Yeah.
be entertained. So
Yeah.
when Graham Hancock's show comes on, Graham Hancock comes in, the first thing he says is, they're lying to you and I know all the truth.
Yeah.
And you're
Exactly.
like, oh, what's this? What's this? And then
Yeah.
he kind of feeds into that. This stuff's being hidden. This stuff they don't talk about. This stuff that is, and I know the secret, so I'll tell you. And then he dresses up. Here's all this information. By the time he actually gets to that, you're already going, oh my, oh my.
Hmm.
But it's not a, I'm learning something like having a teacher who's really good. It is a, is she going to marry the bachelor?
Yeah.
is
It's yeah.
is the murderer in the closet?
Yep. Exactly.
Kind of absorption of entertainment.
Yeah, which
So
is sort of something like, and they use, and they I love Graham Hancock is a master of this. He loves to use like sort of insidious language. He like, and he did it in the
mhm.
debate. He's like, we don't have any proof that they weren't
Oh
there.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, and it's something that one of my favorite episodes of South Park did that, where they made fun of that, where it was the whole thing. It's like, like, we have no proof that ghosts weren't at Plymouth,
yeah.
or and their whole
And
point is
that's
just like, yeah,
the insidiousness, the
yeah,
disingenuity of it.
yeah,
And that's the thing that it's almost subliminal
yeah, it's very much
because
is.
people aren't going to hear the way he says it. They're going to hear the end result of what he says,
Yeah, exactly.
which is you can't tell me there isn't,
Yeah,
or you
exactly.
haven't shown that there isn't.
Hmm.
It is this, I mean, it is, we get into a bit of psychology here with this. We get into
Yeah,
a bit of it's just
Yeah.
it's insidious.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's one of those things where like I just had this thought. He is like so Graham Hancock is now of course he's not dressed like him, but he's essentially the modern equivalent of, and this is going to date me and Morgan a little bit, but he's the modern equivalent of that snake oil salesman from the outlaw Josie Wales, who is like
oh
this,
God, I haven't
yeah,
seen that.
yeah, he's like this tonic can cure everything from from cancer to hurricanes, kind of thing,
Yeah.
where it's like
And
and
where does that come from?
yeah,
Well, and he's like, well, let me tell you a story. I did this and I did this and it was amazing. And he goes
yeah,
off on a tangent and then he comes
yeah,
back and says, oh, by the way, the King of England likes this stuff.
yeah, exactly,
And you're
exactly.
kind of overwhelmed. And that is the selling point of not just Graham Hancock's TV,
Of
all
these
sorts of TV. I mean,
grifters, Ben
who,
Shapiro,
well, Ben Shapiro, stuff like that. But like, I mean, even just looking at reality TV,
yeah,
Bear Grylls
yeah,
out in the
Bear
woods
Grylls,
drinking his own wee, except for the fact he's staying in a hotel every night,
yeah,
except for the
and
fact that the bean counters at the studio cannot allow him to be in such a precarious, dangerous situation, because if something happens to him, their bottom line goes out the window because they're going to
yeah.
be responsible. You
Never mind the
know,
fact. Never mind the fact that and I know this because I've talked with multiple people who have been in the military, both within Britain and without. Never mind the fact that he's lying, and they have confirmed that
Mhm.
he's lying about a lot of his exploits in the military.
Yeah,
Kind of thing. And it's like,
you
so
know,
yeah, and that's
these
Graham
car
Hank.
TV shows, they always seem to make it, but they
Yeah,
dress it up as, hey, if we don't sell this car, we're going to lose the shop.
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sorry if your finances are that garbage all the time that every single episode you're one car away, you're one project away at a certain price from
Yeah,
losing everything, and your 30 something guys are going to be on the street with their
yeah,
families and stuff. If you're running a business that poorly,
yeah.
why are you being on a TV show? You should probably pay attention to, oh, I don't know, your business.
Yeah, exactly. And and then that's and to bring it back to the Dylan War thing, and that's another one of the things. And I'm going to talk about a couple of things, but one of the things is, you know,
We
oh,
could go
and
on about this all day.
I keep going back to this because Graham Hancock keeps saying it, and Randall Carlson keeps saying it. Oh, the floods and everything, wiped out, the cities and Evans. Okay, this is a paper. Look at the title: Trade Ceramics from the Goto Islands in Japan, circa 16th century to early 17th century. Yada yada yada. And
Underwater sites.
what it's talking about is trade ceramics. So, as Morgan and I will tell you, uh, so so for one thing, a little caveat: lithics and ceramics are the two most common artifact types. To
Absolutely.
absolutely, but
Older than
yeah,
150 years, because
yeah,
after 150 years you start getting pieces of metal from
yeah,
cans and
yeah,
nails.
yeah,
And
and things like that. But what I'm getting at here, but the thing is, even though they're the most common thing, artifacts you'll find, they're a lot fucking smaller than say a temple. Yet this paper here is talking about not just ceramics, but finding ceramics underwater off the coast of Japan. In fact, if you look here, look at some of these sites. This one is like
they're underwater.
underwater, well off the coast of the Philippines. These
Half
are
the
off the
Japanese fleet is,
coast.
is
Yeah,
underwater with those ceramics.
yeah, 14 right there. And so there's that. But even if you wanted to, let me find what I what I was trying to get at. Not that. Where's Oh well, for one thing, we found ships. There's the very famous Uluburun shipwreck that was
Yep.
found in the Mediterranean. But that's not even the thing I'm trying
That
to.
has
Yeah,
ingots on it that come from Afghanistan,
yeah, that has ingots on it to come after Afghanistan. Let me see here. Where's the
which is a hell of a walk with a
Doggerland?
bunch of copper ingots.
Yeah, I'm trying to find one specific thing.
Well, Dane's looking at that. One of the things that never gets talked about with Graham Hancock's stuff
Yeah,
is, and if and notice, and I mean, I encourage people to read his books. If you don't believe me, look at his books, look at his TV show.
yeah,
He never talks about the development
yeah.
of.
Well, and
Think
we're going to
about
talk
where
about
you
that a little
live.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. We'll come back to the development of his civilization, which
But
just doesn't seem to exist. It just came up overnight,
but
fully formed.
one of the things I want to talk about is there is this very famous archaeological region, not just site, it's multiple sites, but region called off the coast of Denmark, France, Germany, and Britain called Doggerland.
Doggerland.
And Doggerland is a set of archaeological sites that is underwater, not just underwater, it is well off the coast, as you can see here on this
Yeah.
map, in the center of part of the
Yeah.
North Sea. Yet
There's
here we have
there's
oh, what is this? Oh, look at that. That is mapping of it underwater, because again, Graham
wait,
Hancock has
wait,
no
wait,
idea how to
wait. We
map.
work underwater?
Yeah, apparently, yeah, seriously. And here's some more mapping of
I thought
that.
Graham Hancock said we don't do any underwater stuff.
I know, right? But here's yet another. This is what, like, the eighth one that we've shown just in the past few minutes of people working underwater, and like, you can see
What?
these graphs, and it's like, and this is talking about, oh, look at that! There is a drag of archaeological, of archaeological finds, wood and flint or chert. We call it chert in America. They're the same thing. The artifacts that they found from underwater. Here's another one. Here's a hammerstone, which is another lithic, and things like that. And then, if we come, see here, where's that I just had? Here we go. And then here's an earlier one from 2000. So this one was from, see here, let me look. This one was from 2021. So this is from just 3 years ago. But here, this one about Doggerland was from 2000. And again, here we are talking about
From
a not just
2000.
yeah,
So 20 something years before Graham Hancock went on his adventure for his
yeah,
show,
yeah. And these people were
this work had
already
been done
yeah,
and he
yeah,
didn't cover it?
yeah. That's the whole that's my yeah, that's the big issue
Odd.
is like, because you would think that a site dating back to both before and a little bit after the last ice age, because this site dates back to, I think, like in between the last ice age, 14,000 years ago, I think, roughly. I'll have to look at the dates, to around 7,000 years ago in the Mesolithic period. So you would think that this submerged site underwater of a massive community where they are finding artifacts and they have a map, you would think it would show up on his fucking uh like radar is the lost civilization, yet it's not. And they have a lot of, you can see in these graphs, they have a lot of evidence, like soil evidence, paleoclimatic evidence, all kinds of things. And yet he's saying that we, not only are we not doing this underwater archaeology, we're not finding anything, which is like not at all
And
the
if you notice something,
case.
the paper that Dane just had up
Yeah, yeah,
was 20 pages long, and he's
yeah.
on page 17, and then the last 3 pages are references of
References,
other work
yeah, of
that
other work.
actually is actually gathering up all, I mean, yeah.
Well, and even just with the
There's none of that in the back of Graham Hancock's books.
yeah, and even with the
Stuff that he
first one,
addresses
and
does
even
not cover
yeah,
stuff like this.
yeah,
It's looking at pseudo archaeology and pseudo history people that date all the way back to Ignatius Donnelly
yeah,
in
exactly.
the 1800s. And
Yeah,
it's convenient that they're all dead. It's convenient that all their stuff came out in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
yeah, exactly.
And I mean, there's this one guy, James something. He looks like Albert Fish. For those of you who
Yeah,
know who Albert Fish is, don't look him up.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but he came up with this crazy idea about Lemuria in the
Oh God,
Pacific
yeah,
in the
that shit.
1920s or 30s, and the guy never left like Swindon. He never
Yeah,
left his little village. He might have been on the coast, but Brighton. He didn't live, and again, it's
yeah,
probably not on the coast, but he didn't
yeah,
live outside of Britain. Or if he did, he went to like India with the army. But
yeah,
he
exactly.
conveniently was like, all of these places where I've never been, there's evidence of.
Yeah,
But he's never been. So how does he know? He conveniently has talked to people that he can't remember their name. Or,
yeah,
and then he died in a shipwreck. You know, this man told me
yeah,
all of his secrets and let me marry his wife. And then he died in a shipwreck. My buddy let me $200 and I promised him pay him back, but then he died in a shipwreck.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, exactly. And so it's like, and that's always the thing, is it's always people who have never left at all. And then the other big thing, one of the other things that I wanted to well, for one thing, there is an entire multiple books built, written just about Doggerland alone, like this book you see here, Doggerland: The Cultural Dynamics of a Shifting Coastline. What? And it right there for 10,000 years.
Like,
yeah. From about 23,000 years before present. So well before the thing, up until about 13,000 years before present. So again, right at the end of right at the transition of the Younger Dryas thing, and people are still, and this is yet to be mentioned at all by anyone. Randall Carlson, Graham Fuckwit, nothing. And it's like, and that's one of the big issues.
So I think what we've established so far, is that, I mean, Dane, like a magician pulling rabbits out of a hat, can continue pulling out sources, addressing specific things that Graham Hancock not only ignored in the debate, but ignores in his shows. And we can do this all day.
Yeah, and in fact, we have more that I will cover in a little bit, but we can do this all day. Yeah,
we can do this all day.
Yeah.
We should focus a little bit more on the debate that, of course, neither of us watched because we don't hate ourselves that much. I don't.
Well, actually, some of the sources I have up here are about to specifically address some of the things of the debate. So, so one of the things is, let me find it. See here. Well, there's that. The origin of agriculture. So one of the things he brings up is like, so he's also changed his mind a little bit. I've seen saw the clip, and he used to be like, they introduced agriculture, to this ancient lost Atlantis civilization. He doesn't call it Atlantis, but this ancient lost civilization introduced agriculture to the world. Now he's since changed his tune. It's like, they introduced the idea of agriculture, which is like, but isn't that introducing agriculture?
No, that's introducing.
Yeah.
So again, what? Oh, wait. Fancy way of speaking.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things, and that's one of the things Flint, pushes him on. He's like, okay, so what type of agriculture did they use? And he's like, I don't know. He said that multiple times, and even Rogan, to his credit, was like, okay, but like seriously, what did they, and then Graham Hancock still didn't say anything. But the thing is, we have evidence for this. So for one thing, there's this paper by Arlene M. Rose and Isabel Rivera Colazo titled "Climate Change: Adaptive Cycles in the Pleistocene Persistence of Foraging Economics During the Late Pleistocene and Holocene Transition in the Levant." Oh, and look at that! It's during the Younger Dryas, and it talks about in this paper the type of foods that they were using. But to be fair, that's not agriculture. That being said, let me find my sources here that I have pulled up. Let's see here. See here. So you're not that. Please. Of course, I lose them in this. Here we go. So we have a lot of evidence for the invention of agriculture. So the earliest examples of agriculture that we have in the world are in two regions, China and Peru. And nobody's really sure which came first. They're sort of like skirting on that date. But in China, the earliest form of agriculture in Eurasia was millet, and they found that the earliest, the earliest residues, like the earliest pieces of agriculture and millet they found, date back to around 11,000 years ago, 10,000, 11,000 years ago in the North China Plain. And so there's that. So we have evidence of that, and then there is also evidence of if we go to Peru here, let me find my thing, because of course I had to go well out of my ahead of things. Here we go. And then we go to Peru. the earliest evidence of the domestication of crops such as zucchini and pumpkin is found also 11,000 years ago. In places like Peru in the New World, and also more recently in Africa. But the thing is, the Younger Dryas was around 12, 13,000 to 12,000 years ago, and ended around 11,000 years ago. But the only people who had agriculture during that like little aftermath were people in Peru and in China. Furthermore, in China, predating agriculture by 10,000 years, is we have evidence of the first ever pottery period in the world in China, and it dates back to 20,000 years ago. And the authors of this paper, Zhao Hongwu et al., talk about how it was a sort of a survival mechanism that they created to help, say, store food, of course, boil stew, things like that, to help them just better survive in the, environment. So here's my question. So at the end of the late glacial maximum, agriculture only appears in two places. So if we go back to the Levant again,
the two places that were conveniently not washed off the map,
yeah,
by the globe-ending floods,
yeah,
that Randall Carlson talks about.
Yeah, it's because like the thing is, we have these evidence of the foraging and the foraging in the Levant. So like, here's my question, Graham. Your statement is that this civilization after the fall, let me worry about my camera in a second. After the fall, brought agriculture to the world, but agriculture only appears in two places. So here's my question: why is in places like, say, the Levant, there's still foraging going on, yet in China and Peru you've got millet farming and let's see here, and squash farming, but not anywhere else. Not only that, see here, why did pottery appear? If there was this globe-spanning civilization, why did pottery appear only in China during that time when the civilization was supposed to exist? So you're telling me this civilization created pottery in a singular fucking place, and then nowhere else, and then when their civilization it was collapsing, they fucked off and only introduced agriculture to two spots, while leaving other people in the Levant to forage. But not only that, so cities and things that look like cities did not appear in China and Peru and such until around 7,000 years ago or so, but they begin to appear in places like, say, Jericho and Tel El Satan 14,000 years ago and such. Tel El Satan there, in all kinds of places. Shrubnaya here, dating back to 14,000 years before present, 14,000 years ago. So they helped them start building large scale towns and cities in the Levant, but they didn't do that in China or Peru. But they gave China and Peru agriculture, and they were like, and told everyone in the lot, "Nah, sorry, go fuck yourself." They told everyone in Doggerland, who were still hunter gatherers, "No, go fuck yourself."
So yeah, so the thing, this cornerstone of what Graham Hancock says is that his globe spanning civilization, which has all of the things, which has to, in order to become a giant civilization, must have all of the agriculture and all of the the big buildings and all of that stuff. Not only did it impart important things to all of the people with the big civilizations who are not European, or white or Christian, mind you, they only gave them certain things. Here's your starter kit for civilization. We're only going to give you the three things, and then we're going to give you
well, like for example, here's another one, and this is in China. So in Eurasia, a very common technological aspect of Eurasia, especially in East Asia, is things called microblades. So microblades are these tiny little blades that are put into like paddles and things like that, like you see here in
Keep in
this picture
mind,
here.
these
Yeah,
are keep in mind these are tiny,
yeah,
fragmented artifacts
yeah. That
that,
we find
through some miracle,
survive.
have managed to survive in the archaeological record, have
Yeah,
survived all the tests of time. These
yeah,
small artifacts, fragile, even in their full form, which is why they're broken,
yeah,
they still manage to survive. But the entirety, every single distinct identifying feature of Graham Hancock's globe spanning civilization that
did.
makes it stand out as its own thing conveniently doesn't survive.
Yeah, exactly. And
I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. I need more whiskey.
yeah, well, and then
Uh,
that's one of the things is like so this is a thing that is, and I should correct myself. It's also found in North America. Also, for example, right here as you see in this paper, the Shoshone Basin
yep.
and things like that. But the point is, this is a very common thing that is seen in Eurasia, and of course, in the descendants of Paleolithic Eurasians, Native Americans, and this is seen in this. And one of the big kickers I want to say about this is Graham Hancock. One of his big things in the debate and in all of his things is like, oh, the Younger Dryas was the responsible for the collapse of the civilization and like a regression of technology and such. Yet, right here in this conclusion, uh, microblades are connected to Younger Dryas hunting adaptation. So, in other words, the Younger Dryas actually pushed technological innovation. And you can see
Wait a
that,
second.
yeah,
You mean he's misrepresenting something that's not archaeology?
yeah, exactly.
Oh. I thought he just did the one thing.
Well, and not only that, there's more papers. You've got this paper right here, late Pleistocene intensification technologies, talking about again the Younger Dryas may have affected human behavior, behavior that led to the development of agriculture, as well as the intensification of
At some
technologies
point,
like
Dane is going to show us the
yeah,
wonderful paper he found the other day, which
yeah.
is completely trashing
Oh,
and
that will
knocking
be yeah,
down
the Younger Dryas,
the
yeah,
Younger Dryas impact theory, showing that this cornerstone of Graham Hancock's entire argument
well, yeah, and there,
does not
yeah.
actually exist.
Yeah, and not only that, so like I said, and this
And it's
evidence
not
for
archaeology.
yeah,
I mean, you got to keep that in mind. It is not
yeah,
archaeology.
no, it's not. But another thing, to look at, because like this evidence of the Younger Dryas actually being the catalyst for technological innovation is not just seen in Asia. It's also shown in North America. For example, this paper, Spatio-Temporal Dynamics of the Clovis-Folsom Transition. And it talks about how the Younger Dryas seems to have led to the development and evolution of points from the Clovis tradition to the Folsom tradition, as you can see in this abstract here. And it goes into that. Transition began shortly after 13,000 years and yada, yada, yada. You know, uh, all kinds of things like that. And so this is the paper
Dane, are you
we're
going to have a
going to.
bibliography of all of these sources in the description?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. I
as you
cite
can
my
see, and
sources.
no offense to Dane in the slightest,
Yeah.
but I absolutely understand, and I can understand where some people are going to be like, he's still talking about papers, and I don't know what he's saying. That is one of the ways, one of the
Yeah.
difficulties with
Yeah.
stuff like this. It's a little bit hard to digest, but then we cite our sources and we create a bibliography of those documents. And Dane, because he's great at his job and he's a
Yeah.
professional in the field,
Yeah.
he's going to have this list in the description for the podcast and for the video. So you guys can go back and take your time and
Yeah. To
actually
look
go
at it.
through this stuff.
Yeah.
And because this is the reality of what archaeology is. This is the
Yeah.
reality that the truth of the
Yeah.
truth, because Graham Hancock's big on the truth.
On the
The
truth.
truth is that this is what it is, and it's a
Mhm.
little bit dry, and it's a little bit you have to wade through.
Yeah,
But
exactly. And yeah.
yeah, so
And as you can see in this paper, and this is
How
a
many
paper that
authors are in this?
yeah,
How
how
many
many authors?
professionals wrote this?
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
s-
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
yeah, and that's just for this paper
Unless I
alone.
miscounted. It's like,
Yeah,
and that's for a single paper.
a single
So not
paper that
only
is
are
75 pages long, for that matter.
75 pages long, but not only, and I guarantee you, I mean, I don't know any of these, the people who are, I just
Yeah,
counted off here. I don't know their particular specialties, but I guarantee you it is not just the one topic. It is a
yeah,
multitude of topics that are all tied together. Archaeologists, geologists,
yeah,
paleontologists, all of these disciplines that in his grand
yeah,
flailings and flagellations, Graham Hancock and people like Randall Carlson and stuff like that conveniently dismiss all of their work,
yeah.
which
And
is extremely problematic.
they use outdated theories like the
Mm.
Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Now,
Or the
so let
white
me
god hypothesis.
the white God hypothesis.
Ooh.
Now and then there are a couple of other things. This is the last of the sort of like not the last, but it's going to be one of the last of the papers that we're going to talk about before we move on to the more ephemeral things that they talk about in the debate. But the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is something that was brought up several times in the debate and also in the documentary. And the thing is, it was a fine hypothesis. Okay, that's a hand. Let me do a side tangent. Theory is not the correct term.
Oh yeah. So
Theory is something that people hijacked and be like, oh, it's just a theory because people say, oh, I have a theory that that my gas tank is gonna run out before I get to yada yada yada. When theory actually means something that has been tested
it's
repeatedly and proven.
it's a
Hypothesis,
hell of
yeah,
a good investigative journalist to not
yeah,
use the correct word.
exactly,
Just throwing that
exactly.
out there.
But the hypothesis is the untested idea, which people think is what a theory is. And so the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which is not the same thing as the Younger Dryas. The Younger Dryas itself has been proven time and time again, but the impact hypothesis, or the idea that a meteor crashed down and essentially did a mini
Hard
dinosaur thing.
reset.
Yeah, yeah, hard reset
Hard reset, but only focused
on in
on
North
Graham
America.
Hancock
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Because
And
that meteor looked into the future. It had the power. And it
yeah,
was like, this guy from
yeah,
wherever the hell in England, I'm gonna stick it to him.
yeah,
Him and his
exactly.
ayahuasca.
Yeah,
And erase
exactly.
everything that Graham Hancock has to talk about.
And the thing is,
Leave everything else,
yeah, and leave
but
everything else.
yeah.
And there are still a lot of archaeologists that they're now becoming a minority, but there's still a lot of archaeologists who subscribe to this hypothesis, and they're not. And I want to make clear they're not bad archaeologists because they do that, because a lot of them have actually done their own work and published papers on it. But the thing is, it's still something that is becoming more and more debunked. And this paper,
Why do you think there's other archaeologists who still buy into this?
and it's probably because of some of Graham's ideas, unfortunately. You know, uh,
Okay, well, my thought on that is if you were to put them all in a room,
yeah,
the demographic would be older,
yeah, older, yeah, which
where
is
this
another thing.
stuff was the forefront
Of
of archaeological thought when
Yeah,
they were
exactly.
learning.
Yeah,
One of the things I want to speak on real quick here
yeah. Go ahead.
is that Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson
Hmm.
and all of the cronies in the conspiracy world will cite one thing,
Yeah,
commonality across the thing, and that is the idea that we don't learn anything new and that we ignore
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, and we don't, as
Well,
we have shown in this,
the
already.
reason the reason why that is absolutely false is, I mean, you just cited, how many papers did we go through? 12
Oh, 12 at least. Yeah,
at
more
least.
than yeah,
All stuff that in the 80s would not have existed
yeah, exactly.
simply because of the technology and the availability of doing the work.
Yep.
So the idea that we don't look at new stuff or that we don't
Yeah.
accept new information is blatantly false. So false that I will eat my hat if somebody proves me wrong.
Yeah, and that's something that we will
which is
talk about again
why,
later. Yeah,
which is why the group of people who buy into the Younger Dryas impact is starting
yeah,
to shrink. The group
yeah,
that buy into the Clovis first hypothesis, which I've talked about a lot,
yeah.
which
What
is
and
something
we
that
will
we've absolutely debunked.
and we will
But the
talk
people
about in a
who,
little bit. Yeah,
because Graham Hancock loves pointing it out,
yeah, exactly.
the people
And
who still buy into it,
are older
I'm not gonna be kind in this, are old,
and
on their
wise.
way to retirement, and they were going to school and learning about archaeology in the 70s,
Yeah,
which
or
aside
earlier.
from the drug use or
Yeah.
earlier, which aside from the drug use was a time period where the technology was limited,
Hmm.
even the abilities of the technology, let alone the availability. But and when the evidence did point to the Clovis first hypothesis,
Yeah.
and the only reason it did is because at the time period, the only reason the Clovis first hypothesis survived and worked is because for a time, yes, that's what the evidence pointed to.
Yeah.
You know, and that's right up there with the if you drive behind it close behind a semi, you get better gas mileage.
Yeah.
You know, it works until some bit of science tells you that if you run a slightly smaller tire and you keep
Yeah.
within this speed, you'll actually get even better mileage than trying to draft off of somebody else.
Exactly.
You know,
And
as science goes along, as the technology gets better, as the evidence, you know, gets more and more visible, stuff like Clovis first has gone away. We've established there were people here way before 13,000
yeah.
years ago,
And
long and far
yeah.
away. You
Yeah.
know, the stuff that the people that continue to hold on to that when they were going to school, this is what not only what they knew,
Yeah.
but what they might have helped write,
Yeah.
what they cut their teeth on.
Mhm.
And that's a really hard thing to get out of. I mean, and we're all guilty of it. I mean,
Yeah.
there is something that me and Dane, we're roughly the same age, something
Yeah.
that we think is great from our childhood, something we were growing up with. And our kids look at us like we're absolutely insane.
Yep.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you eat corned beef hash out of a can? That's so
Yeah.
gross. It's like
Yeah.
my kid loves it because I marketed it as who hash and she thought it was great. Sidebar. But it's like, we have this thing that we as a generation
Yeah.
hold on to. In this case, when talking about the academic stuff, we have people who believe in stuff that has been proven false because they're hardline and they don't want to go, well, I spent 50 years of my life
Yeah.
buying into this, and then I've retired and I've been out of the game for 15 years, and the technology all changes.
Yeah,
The race
exactly.
car driver coming back and finding everybody's running fuel injection instead of a carburetor. He's going to be like, well, I don't know this new stuff and I'm comfortable with the old stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
So,
essentially what this
and that's
is.
a human thing. That's not necessarily an academic thing either. That's a human thing. That's where it branches into psychology.
Yeah, and the big thing, with that is like again, while this was a fine hypothesis, for one thing, this has become, and I talked about this before in a D in our in my in the D&D podcast that Morgan and I are part of, is this debate between whether or not the Younger Dryas impact happened has become, and I'm not making this up, and Morgan can back me up on this, has become arguably one of, if not the biggest dick measuring contest in archaeology,
Oh
in
my
American
God.
archaeology, so much. And I'm not making this up. There are so many papers. Every time a paper like this comes out, there's another paper with just as many archaeologists author on it, and they're
Saying that
like,
it is, yeah.
it is.
But see that like if you put the two
Yeah,
together, if you
yeah,
put and read them both, you'll notice that there is like one paper has one big thing they really ride on or that stands out, and the other paper conveniently is missing that. And like with the Younger Dryas impact, people are like, especially with this paper, there is no evidence of an impact at all.
yeah,
Like there and the continued allowance, if you will, of this like spitballing is
yeah,
not conducive to anybody getting anywhere. Meanwhile, the
yeah,
other paper is like, just because we haven't found an impact
yeah,
doesn't mean it didn't happen. And here's all of the things that point to us being right.
Yeah, and which is where
And
this paper comes in. So this paper
then this paper is like right between the two, like both of you go to your fucking room. It's like,
yeah, this paper. So this
this
paper
is
is
beautiful.
yeah, this paper is 75 pages
Make
long, and in
make
it,
sure you highlight this one. And
yeah,
if
yeah,
somebody, if there's enough people who, because I'm sure Dane's going to throw parts of this up on his TikTok. If there are
yeah,
people who see this and want to
yeah.
hear it, our socials will be in here. I'm sure either me or Dane would be willing to sit down and audiobook this son of a
Oh,
bitch.
I'm sure. Because the thing
I'll
is,
do it.
here's yeah, I'll do it too. Well, seeing is here's one of the things. So this is a list of all the things that they debunk in this paper. So let me find it. So here's the introduction. And so let's find the first thing that they go after here. They go after a lot, and it's hard to. Oh, so yeah, that's the defining of the younger dryas. Okay, yeah, so they define the younger
This is
dryas, and
so
then here,
crazy.
so they talk about flawed assumptions in the younger dryas impact hypothesis, which are the misunderstood decline of the Clovis population, which we already showed a paper
Ooh.
talking about that, the Clovis Folsom transition, which they go into
Which
length
is
about that.
not the people disappearing.
Yeah,
It is literally the technology
you
is not
chain it. Yeah,
sustainable. So you change the
yeah,
technology to be more sustainable.
yeah,
And that's one of the things I also think doesn't get put out there a lot, because Graham Hancock stuff relies on the ideas that the civilization disappeared.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
the people didn't disappear. The civilization didn't necessarily disappear.
Yeah,
But if you got to change something, get whatever big reason it is,
yeah,
that distinct marker,
yeah.
if you are held to that as like the icon of your civilization, then yeah, you've disappeared.
But
Not
it's
because your entire population has disappeared and been wiped out. It's because you guys stopped using big stone tools.
yeah,
I mean, for people who are listening, they're probably like, this all this guy knows about is cars and archaeology, because
yeah,
I've used this analogy a lot. All cars today are fuel injected. When my dad was a kid and my dad was a young adult, all cars had a carburetor.
yeah, exactly.
Technically, a car from the 70s and a car from today are the same thing. They
Yeah,
drive down the road, they're transportation. The problem is that one is really bad on gas because the technology is old. It
yeah,
works, but it's old, it's not great. And then in modern cars, get 50 miles to the gallon, and they're
yeah,
far more efficient and they create more
yeah,
power. And that's because all of this technology in the car is better. So my
yeah,
dad is a part of the carburetor culture,
yeah,
and my daughter is part of the fuel injected culture.
yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
in the middle as this place of
Yeah,
transition where I've got a carbureted vehicle as a project car, but then I've got my fuel injected vehicle, which is early fuel injection. It's not the greatest fuel injection. Meanwhile, my wife's car has got the new fuel injection.
yeah,
And
exactly.
it's this transitional period. And you do see that in the archaeological record.
Yep.
Transitional technology
As they talk about in this section and in the paper we talked
in this
about.
section there.
And then
Does
another
that mean
thing,
that my
yeah.
dad's entire civilization has disappeared? No.
Exactly, exactly. And then we have
It
things
means
like the like they talk about the misunderstood megafauna extinctions, which were thought to at one point in time to have been wiped out by humans, but now is
you know
like
something
not.
about the
Yeah,
black mat? The black
yeah,
mat exists
yeah,
only in places in the weather patterns
yeah,
of the eastward sweep from the Mazama eruption, which, for those people who don't know, is what made Crater Lake
yeah.
Crater
Well,
Lake.
well, not only that, so that actually leads us into this, like the problematic chronological and paleoclimatic assumptions involving that. On and on and on. There's flawed sampling is one of the things, and it's one of the things they cover a lot.
And
Uh,
I want to throw something out there really quick.
yeah, yeah,
That does make our job a little bit more difficult, and the people who are writing these papers a little bit
yeah,
more difficult. Is that in the 2000s,
yeah,
when Dane and I became grown-ups, and
yeah, yeah,
actually got into
exactly.
this field,
Yeah,
um, we're going into a field where there is 5 generations of people doing
yeah,
work before us.
yeah,
So not only are we looking at things, not only are we looking at information that was sampled 50 years ago, we're looking at sites that were excavated partially 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So not only are we having to look at the archaeological stuff, we have to look at the disturbance of the archaeological excavation stuff.
Yeah.
And we have to take that kind of thing into account.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
when we're doing this, some of this stuff, here's these samples, and the samples were correct in 1965.
Yeah.
The technology is better, the methodology is better, and the new eyes on it are discovering more.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I want to say something is that we're not taking away, we're not
Yeah.
throwing stuff out.
Hmm,
That
that's
is
it. Yeah.
I mean, yes, the hypothesis is going away. Hypothesis is a fake thing on a piece of paper. It's ethereal. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The data that we're looking at, no, we disprove the Younger Dryas. We disprove the Clovis first. We disprove all of these old hypotheses by adding so much more
Yeah,
to that, showing
exactly.
that, hey, and we acknowledge, hey, this was good back then. All of this data that we're actually able to now figure out, we're actually now able to study, has shown that this is incorrect. So the
Hmm.
idea, which is just a thing in your head, is gone, and it gets to be replaced with something that is even more inclusive and even more
Yeah.
detailed.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea, because this is something that the Hancock world sells you,
Yeah.
the idea we ignore shit that
Yeah.
doesn't line up with our hypothesis. We are getting rid of an old hypothesis by inundating it with new
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah.
and you know resampled,
Yeah.
restudied. I mean, there are, I would be willing to bet there are academics who are in this paper who have never been to the actual site and never actually looked at new sample stuff. They are in a lab rehashing the old stuff, and they are still able to pull enough evidence and enough information out of the old sample
Yeah.
to come up with this new stuff.
Well, speaking of,
So
that actually leads me into this selective sampling at Abu Huraira, the one of the places that is like held up. They go into they're like, oh, you didn't do enough sampling, and then they go into more of that inadequate dating and
in
stratigraphic context.
5,261 shovel tests, we did
Yeah,
enough sampling. I mean,
yeah, befuddled dating for the inadequate dating stratigraphic contest, befuddled dating, pseudo archaeological divine date because that's the thing. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis has been hijacked by pseudo archaeologists, and so they point that
oh
out.
God.
Deficient
And
dating of these sites. They on and on and on. So yeah, they're not even like we don't
Göbekli
need to.
Tepe in big letters on that page.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll
On and
get
on
into
and
that in a
on.
minute.
And so, and we're not going to go through everything, but you get the idea. They go through so many of these things. Like what's another thing I just passed?
I just saw your timestamp on your screen because we're
Yeah.
sharing screens right now, and I'm like, it's 7:24. Shit, I'm late for my game. It's
Oh, you're late.
5:24.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
it's I so
Yeah.
because Dan and I play D&D and we're
Yeah.
nerds.
Yeah, we
I've got a
play yeah.
D&D game at
Yeah.
7 Mountain Time.
Yeah, 7 Mountain Time, so we're good. Yeah.
So
But yeah,
yeah, I've got a little bit.
but but like here's like to like the conclusions go over all the things they talk about. They talk about in a climatic sense, it was only 1,000 years, and is not unique. Clovis was not the idea that Clovis was terminated by some environmental catastrophe is baseless. Megafauna varied and was not necessarily one big event.
Yeah.
Most sites claim to have the Younger Dryas impact, have poor numerical age control, on and on and on. So they don't even go and do new things. They just look at the stuff that people have already done.
They've
Oh,
looked at
here,
added stuff too.
yeah. Well, now that look at so-called black mats are not unique to the Younger Dryas impact, yada yada yada, and so which is one of the
What?
big pieces of evidence that people try to bring up. And so that's the thing. These
You know,
are and
first
yeah,
times, one of the first times on TikTok, I had somebody
yeah,
ask me a question that was
yeah,
like debunky stuff. I didn't pay attention to who it was, and it was
yeah.
about the black mat. And I
Yeah,
said essentially that same thing. And I was
yeah,
like, it doesn't actually, I mean, this globe destroying thing doesn't actually expand outside of, the Pacific Northwest and Ohio.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah.
it does not stand up. And the person was Phantom Universe, who's this
Oh,
pseudoscience account who's like big
yeah.
into the did you know? And he's got some presence. People like his stuff.
Yeah.
But he asked me this question, and I just blindly was like, well, it doesn't fucking work. And I
Yeah.
listed like half a dozen sources and then just kind of whoop sent the message off into space
Yeah.
and didn't realize who it was for like 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then like,
Uh,
like this, many of the purported indicators cannot be used to even test the hypothesis, and are often misidentified, things
oh, you
like
mean
that.
Graham Hancock's thing about, well, let's test rocks with oh wait,
Yeah.
it's not Graham Hancock, that's being unfair.
Yeah.
The Creationist Museum, let's test rocks for carbon, which you can't do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And so, and that's one of those things where it's like, hi, that's like, so yeah, they're like, and they, and they're not in this paper, they're not, saying, oh, these people need to be, ostracized or anything like that. They're just presenting their points, you know, point by point in a very large paper. But the last thing in
And
paper,
something that's going to
yeah,
be said is that we're ostracizing Hancock because he's coming
yeah,
in with a new idea,
yeah,
except for the fact that he isn't.
yeah,
He's not coming in with a
exactly.
new idea.
He's
And
coming
the
in with an old idea.
and the idea and you got to one of the
Yeah,
things that is in this
yeah,
is that there are people who are playing the game and they're getting, I don't want to say beat,
yeah,
but they're getting pushed off the court by people who are playing the same game.
yeah. And
To say that you know we don't like Graham Hancock, so we're not letting him play. And Graham Hancock has showed up to the game without the game,
yeah,
without the
without the game.
ball, without the gear. He's not even in the same realm.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's not just us being like, well, we don't like the guy, because I've made no secret. I mean, he's my best friend. I'll gladly punch him in the face in the bar.
Yeah,
And someone's going to hold that against me.
but it's
But the
like,
thing is that when he shows up and he says, well, this is my opinion and what I believe, it's like, great, cool. What's your evidence? And he goes, no, I don't have any.
yeah,
Or you're hiding it, or whatever excuses come up. It's like,
mhm.
okay, you can't play in our sandbox, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And that
And
is not just us.
no, it's not.
Every
It's
discipline in science does that. If I show up and
mhm.
say, well, I can be a heart surgeon. I watched ER. They're
Yeah.
gonna tell me to get. They're gonna tell me to get their security. Take this guy out of the hospital.
Well, not even just
It's
science. Like I could show up to a
you're
law
not
firm
wrong.
is I could show up to a law firm and be like, I watched Law and Order. I watched every fucking
I can say
season.
objection to thing I
Yeah,
don't believe in. That's about all you can do. That's on the same page.
I
But
watched
it's
I
yeah,
watched
it's
both Legally Blondes, and therefore I'm a lawyer. It's like,
you have a stronger stomach than I do. I mean, hell.
well, I'm just making that yeah, connection
No,
because
no,
that's
you're right.
like,
You're right
yeah,
though. That's the thing is that, and I mean,
yeah,
I have a thing where I really do. I'll say it about science stuff.
yeah,
I will, but you're absolutely right because I'll admit it, I didn't think of this. Walking into a law firm
yeah,
and saying I watched Liar Liar and Legally Blonde. I can do
yeah,
law.
exactly, yeah,
Walking into, I mean, I've used the mechanic thing before, but like walking into a 5-star restaurant. I watched Nailed It. I
yeah,
watched the Great British Bake Off. I can make anything, and these people will love it.
yeah,
That's just not how this works. And the only tie-in that goes across the board in all of this that really, really we can hang our hats on is the professionalism of.
yeah,
We
yeah,
are professionals in the field of archaeology, and that means that we have done A through Z
yeah,
of education, practical application, employment background, all this stuff. We have done lots of
mhm,
work, and we have been put into. We've found ourselves in a category of we are professionals in our field, and even within that field,
yeah,
there are people who are better at the job than than uh the other. For example, me and Dane. Dane is on the East Coast.
Yeah.
He's at East Coast. He's in the Southeast. So
Yeah.
he has an entire demographic of archaeology, an entire worldview of archaeology, and he is the expert in it. And I could show up there and I'll be like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, if he were to turn around and come up here to
Yeah.
the Pacific Northwest in the Rockies,
Yeah.
he's going to be out of his depth. He's going to be out of his element.
Exactly.
Yes, there are things that we mutually understand and we mutually know, but you get to the nitty-gritty of it. I'm the professional and he is learning the skill set.
Yeah.
If I go to his world, he's the professional. I'm learning the skill set.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're both archaeologists. That's the thing. Both of us go to Egypt. We're going to stand there twiddling our thumbs, being like, "That's a big pile of rock," and we like Kafka.
Yeah,
Egyptian coffee is awesome.
Exactly.
We're not going to necessarily be as skilled as the Egyptologists.
Yeah, I know a lot about
people who do Mesoamerican stuff.
Yeah,
they're better at their worldview.
Yeah.
So there's got to be an understanding here. And here's the thing, again, I'm giving him bones that he doesn't quite deserve.
Yeah.
Me and Dane are not investigative journalists.
Yeah.
So Graham Hancock could report on something scandalous and get it a better deal, give it better than we could.
Yeah, exactly. But but that doesn't mean anything. And
Joe Rogan is a great personality.
He's really
People
good
like
at
his stuff. He's not a mechanic. He's not an archaeologist. He's not a doctor. He's not a sandwich maker at Subway.
Yeah.
But he's a personality.
Yeah,
and that admittedly takes a skill set, Yeah,
it does. He's very good at what he does. And and the thing is, it's like to tie it all off. The last paper I want to show is Joe Rogan, for the great personality he has bought into Graham Hancock's bullshit about and all of Graham Hancock, great salesman, has sold to people so much that archaeologists are not willing to prove to say anything new. Here we go. Look at this paper.
Engage in that, because that's like getting in a fight and don't get into a war in Asia.
Yeah, and then
don't get into a land war in Asia. I mean, that's literally what we're looking at.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's also wrong, because here's this paper I want to show you. So for the longest time, it was thought that in Louisiana there was this one particular set of mounds that only date back, I think, like 9,000 or so years ago, or 6,000 years ago. But here is a bunch of archaeologists and geologists, because geologists work with archaeologists a lot, because sometimes they have skills that we need.
The fields cross.
And they talk about,
unlike in Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and they talk about the construction of a set of mounds on the LSU campus that goes back to 11,000 years before present. And they go into depth. You can see here in this paper, they show
where's the evidence of Graham Hancock's civilization in that. I wonder.
Well, and that's exactly what I was going to say. So for one thing, they say what they're talking about and show like their work and things like that. But not only that, at the end of it, in the conclusion, down to the conclusion, the authors state that while they are making this claim, they admit that
they admit shortcomings.
Yeah, therefore, in consideration of these objections, we were not able to test this hypothesis that the microscopic yada yada yada. And they talk about that there's more research that needs to be done, within this thing, which is what archaeologists.
You mean there's an acknowledgement that we have yet more to learn?
Yeah, but
and that we're not stuck in this idea from what the 70s that we don't want to.
And then like you said, one of the things I pointed out, because I did a 3-video series where I debunked point by point the Ancient Apocalypse documentary, where Graham Hancock goes to Poverty Point. Mockumentary, whatever. But
you watched Milo's, right?
Yes, I watched Milo's. I watched all of them. But one of the things that they, he goes to Poverty Point, which I've been to in Louisiana. It's a cool place. But, and it's one of the oldest, but it's not the oldest. But he goes to this thing and he's like, oh, this Poverty Point, this is evidence of my civilization. And the whole time I was watching this, I was just I remember this paper because this paper came out, I think, like a year before the ancient
2022.
apocalypse.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
show came out in 2022.
yeah, and I'm just thinking, dude, why didn't you go here? This is closer to the Younger Dryas, and this is right. This is like right
Well,
after the
that's the
Younger
thing, is
Dryas.
that
Yeah,
he didn't go there
yeah,
because this doesn't necessarily fit in with the narrative he wants to punch through,
yeah, exactly. And so
which we'll get into here
yeah,
in the next little bit, because
yeah,
we
yeah,
actually gotta focus on the
yeah,
debate
yeah.
and the issues with Graham Hancock's bullshit.
Well, and we have a
Because
little bit because a lot of these things I pointed out were things that were points that he mentioned in the debate, where it's like, oh, the development of the civilization, the underwater, yada yada yada. And I brought this up because it is one of my favorite examples of, like, it's a new idea pushed by archaeologists that they are not being ostracized for, and two, it's a new idea that Graham Hancock himself ignored. He's talking about
yeah, and it's
archaeologists
literally
ignoring it, and it's
in
in
the
his
time
ballpark.
frame he's
Yeah,
talking. Yeah.
yeah. And so
So
that's the whole thing. And so that actually leads me into one of the most annoying, and I'm so tired of hearing this talking point, things that he brought up in the debate. Graham Hancock brought up fucking Jock Sink Mars and the whole he supposedly got ostracized for saying that there was a pre-closed contingent to the Bluefish Caves. And the thing is, well, yes, there were some people who seem to have taken it a little too
yeah,
far. Most
yeah, I saw
he
that article.
yeah. And the
You
thing
know
is,
when that article was published?
when
The article I saw with Jacques Saint Mars being with a journalist going out to Bluefish Caves,
yeah,
talking about the pre-Clovis contingent of the
yeah,
of Bluefish
Bluefish
Caves, which
Caves.
dates back to 24,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That article
Mhm.
came out in 1993.
Yeah. Just a few
I
years
saw
before.
my first
Yeah.
movie in the theater in 1993. I was 10
Yeah.
years old. It was
Yeah.
Jurassic Park. The second
Yeah.
movie I saw was The Lion King, and I thought it had nothing on giant dinosaurs tearing apart old,
Yeah.
Ford SUVs. It's how long ago is 1993 for people who are better at instant math?
21 years ago now.
No, 1993. No, my Toyota was built in 97. It is 26 years old, or
Oh
20.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, shit.
It is
30 years
30
ago.
years old.
Yeah, 30 years old.
30
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
So here is and this is the thing that people need to understand about archaeology. We base our findings on evidence
Yeah.
that can be shown and
And
can be
yeah.
tested.
And Jacques Saint
There is
Mars did not have sufficient evidence for his
Jacques
claims.
Saint Mars stuff was thin.
And they
There's a
pointed it
site
out.
in Mexico right now
Yeah.
where 3 artifacts were found below the 30,000 year mark.
Yeah.
And the first thing a critic asked was, are you sure it's the original context?
Yeah, which
And
is
what they
always the
meant by
question.
that was, are you sure that these 3 artifacts, which seem to stand alone at this depth,
Yeah.
are you sure that something in history did not occur to result in those 3 artifacts being at the 30,000 year level?
Yeah.
And they're talking about stuff like rodent burrows going through the site, erosional forces washing stuff down, previous
Earthquakes.
disturbance, earthquakes, stuff like that. Here's a thing you found. Here's a claim you've made. Okay, in the scientific community, we go, can you explain A, B, C, and D?
Yeah, and that's
Because
what they
A,
did
B,
to
C, and
Doc.
D will prove you wrong.
And that's what they did to Doc. And the thing is, so like one of the articles, because somebody shared me a news article when this debate was going on, where they're like, oh, see, this news article talks about how he was left out of conferences and yada yada yada. And from my understanding, no, that didn't happen. If anyone who was around during that time is watching this, please feel free to correct me. But from my
The only
understanding, yeah,
archaeologist who got
yeah,
laughed and mocked out of a
conference,
conference along the lines of what people think happened to Jacques Saint
Doc
Mars and all these
Mars,
other people is Daniel Jackson in the original
oh,
Stargate
sorry,
movie.
yeah,
Everybody got
exactly.
up and left for lunch
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, and that's exactly
because
it.
scientists
Yeah.
want to argue.
Yeah, they
Guys, we
want to
want to argue
argue.
this shit. Which means
Yeah.
if you say I found Bigfoot, every single person who's a detractor is going to come up to you after the thing and they're going to argue their shit. They're not
Yeah,
going to leave in the middle of it. They're not going to laugh
no.
you out. They want to know
Yeah,
because A,
exactly.
they want to know if you actually are right, and B, they want to tear you a new asshole if you're
Yeah.
not.
Well, and not only
So
that, yeah, and not only that, Jock Sink Mars was not ostracized. He continued to work for decades in the Bluefish
yeah,
Caves. He had a fine
and it was
career.
literally the you don't have the evidence to back you up.
And the thing is, he wasn't the only one making the fucking claim. As I was talking about with one of my mentors a few months ago in a Zoom, he was talking who is an archaeologist who works in Florida. He's like, yeah, we had a couple of people in Florida who were also making that claims about sites in Florida. We had some people who were making claims about sites in caves around, Canada and the Montana and like Oregon border and things like that.
Yeah,
John Sink Mars was not the only one making this claim. None of them were ostracized. They were all told, we don't think you have
there's
enough
no
evidence. Yeah, we don't think you have enough
yeah.
evidence. And then the funny thing happened when Monteverde, the first site that had sufficient evidence, happened. All of the detractors were like, okay, here we have the
Okay, here's
evidence.
all of these other sites that suddenly tie in with it.
Yeah. And so,
And it's like
yeah,
if you need 5 bits of evidence, they've been operating with 4, and then Casa
yeah.
Verde was 5.
Yeah, Mesa Verde was 5, and that's like, and then
Uh,
since then there have been more and more and more and more and more and more and more found, and it's just like,
one of the sites
yeah,
that is technically under my jurisdiction-ish
yeah,
is Cooper's Ferry.
yeah, exactly. Cooper's Ferry. Thank you. That's a good one.
16.8.
Yeah,
16.8. And then Cooper's Ferry, which was the oldest occupation site in North America, thanks to some new technology and some more resources to throw at it, only held that honor for like 10 years
before another
because
one
a
came
site
on.
in Oregon just kicked him out at
Yeah,
18 and a half
and
thousand.
then even then, that's not the necessarily the oldest. There's
The
the
mammoths,
footprints. There's the
there's the
footprint.
footprints in White Sands,
There's the
which are
there's the
22,000.
Yeah, and then there's the mammoth site that appears to be a butchering site in Colorado
New
that,
Mexico.
oh well, there's New Mexico, but also in Colorado that vaguely and again the authors of the paper state that more research needs to be done. If these lithics and if the lithics are connected to this mammoth bones that are broken and appear to show cutting of some sort, it could be 30, up to 37,000
30,000.
years ago. Yeah. And they're like,
The one
but
that's in
yeah,
New
yeah,
Mexico is 36 to 38,000, and that's
yeah,
the test. That's the age they got off of testing the collagen that still existed in the mastodon bone.
yeah,
But that site shows signs of controlled fire,
yeah, exactly.
which is a thermal feature which you can get if you have a big enough sample a radiocarbon date on.
Yep,
Which I don't
exactly.
know if they have a radiocarbon date. I think it's fire cracked rock
Yeah, I don't think
with
they've
no
gotten that yet.
charcoal.
Yeah,
But again, and this is a great example of here's an archaeological site that shows evidence of A,
yeah,
B, C, and D, and by all rights should rewrite history. I really hate that saying, but
I do too.
push it back, change our view of it. The problem is that then something comes up of yes, you have a thermal feature which shows fire use, but the testable thing doesn't exist, which is
Yeah,
the charcoal,
yeah,
which could have washed away with the first rainstorm, which
exactly.
could have washed away in 1537 because some indigenous guy happened to be tinkering around and he uncovered it by accident
Hmm.
looking for some lithic material, and then it got washed away. A billion different things could have changed that site to the point where we can't test it. And the reason why that site has not been taken as gospel is because this variable still stands out there, which is why we write it with it looks like or is possible with more evidence is
Evidence is
required.
where, yeah, exactly. And
We
that's
don't
the
say
whole
no,
thing.
we say we need to make sure that we're not going to look like idiots.
And none of these archaeologists have been, because these are new ideas that archaeologists have pushed forward, and not a single fucking one of them has been ostracized or canceled or anything.
I want to say one thing to that
What?
because this became such a shit show on
Yeah.
social media. Do you remember the site in Utah that just came up?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. For background, for everybody who's paying attention to this.
Yeah.
There was a site in Utah that was discovered last spring, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And there was a video that came out on social media, on TikTok, and the archaeologist who was on that project, she posted this video, one of the archaeologists.
Yeah.
And very quickly, that video was taken down.
Yeah.
Now, what she said was, we found something amazing. We found something very, very ancient, and it's human. And that launched 1,000 ships into the world of boofuckery. Because what ended up the site actually was another set of fossilized footprints. And these footprints fit right into the Clovis period of humans in America.
Yeah.
13,000-ish years ago. But the fact is that it was an intact campsite with a thermal feature and had footprints. That was the amazing thing. The problem is that this individual who posted the original video posted the video, kind of left it as a cliffhanger to get views, to make it more interesting, whatever.
Yeah.
But then was approached by their bosses.
Yeah.
And had the video they took the video down because it was a violation of the company's social media presence regulation.
Yeah.
Which, and I've been on projects, I'm sure Dane has as well.
Yeah.
We literally have to, in the hire paperwork, sign, essentially, we're not going to disclose this information to the public via social media.
Yeah.
There is a policy within our companies, out of cultural respect for one, two, security for others, because we will post a picture. We can post a picture. Hey, this is a beautiful archaeological site. And if there's an identifiable landmark in the background, somebody will show up and loot the site.
Yep.
Period. The end. This is a security thing to keep people from looting the site. The endless search kid on TikTok, the Russian archaeology kid on TikTok and Instagram, these people who are breaking federal and state law literally are the ones that we're not revealing information for.
Yeah.
Nothing about, oh, Graham Hancock's right and we're hiding the truth from him. Everything to do with, this is an indigenous site and the indigenous descendants want it to be secured and kept safe for their cultural reasons, which we absolutely have to respect. And for all the people who say, you guys haven't done it for a long time, shit changes, just like the science. We've been doing it for 40 fucking years, at least a recognition.
Yeah, at least.
At the very least. And that's, believe me, I have formed more of my career around tiptoeing around stuff and being cognizant of things than I'm sure people understand.
Yeah, exactly.
The point is that the only person, this whole roundabout thing, the only person who ever got shut down and canceled was the girl who violated
the thing,
company's social media agreement. Nothing to do with we're hiding shit for the government. Nothing to do with we're trying to keep the narrative in place, which is a thing that and nothing to do with the we're going to ostracize her out of the club of archaeology.
No.
Everything to do with this was an improper use of social media. You violated the rules. You've put this site at risk. Yeah. And this is information that we were not prepared to put out there in the world anyway, because, and in the case of this site specifically, tribal consent was needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is a thing that Graham Fuckwit refuses to acknowledge. Well, and then that actually leads me into another point that I had forgotten that I made outside of this video to other people. So let me make a slight correction. Sorry. Archaeologists do very, very, very rarely boot people out, but they're for very specific and very rare reasons. One, either they continue to use very outdated theories, like say Clovis first or something like that, and even then we don't boot them out. We just like, hey, you need, or like the archaeologist who kept pushing the Solutrean hypothesis. He was a great archaeologist. It's just he used a lot of things that he didn't that he wasn't within his specialty.
To push a thing that did not
match.
And at
or
some point, you got to go, okay, dude.
yeah, or we push out people who for very specific racist things, like they are doing very racist things and using very racist theories. Of course, a combination of the two, or you say they get fired or pushed out or something for being very
Yeah.
we'll just say creeps, like
And I don't,
they abuse their power with, say,
they abuse their
young.
power.
Yeah,
And see, the thing, well, get
yeah,
into the creeps like the guy from Alaska.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
That has nothing to do with archaeology and everything to do with
yeah, with
sexual
their,
predation
yeah,
and
exactly, yeah, with, yeah,
stuff that is, yeah. And again, like with the guy who did the Solutrean hypothesis, we didn't get rid of him and destroy his life and
no, he had a
shoot his
fine
dog,
career.
steal his wife, and
Yeah,
knife the tires on his car. We literally went, there is no place for this continued, already proven.
yeah,
I mean, because again, the pseudoscience community, Graham Hancock especially, loves saying, you guys just don't, you guys are elitist. It's every single field in every single profession,
yeah,
not even in science, every single profession that humans have, period, the end. If you do it wrong, they're going to get rid of you.
yeah,
They're going to
and that's
push you out.
exactly it.
They're not going
Yeah,
to give you work.
yeah,
If you're a bricklayer and you do a
mhm,
shitty job of laying bricks,
yeah.
they're going to get rid of you. If you're a bad mechanic, you're a bad doctor, you're a bad plumber.
If you're a bad journalist,
Oh, journalist.
yeah,
If you're a bad lawyer, if you're a
yeah,
bad politician, the only field, I'm sorry, I'm gonna
yeah,
correct
correct.
myself here.
Yeah,
The only
politician.
field where
Yeah,
you can be really fucking bad and still have a job
as
is weather,
politician. Yeah,
baseball, and politics.
yeah,
And I
exactly.
don't even know where the baseball reference comes from. I just heard somebody say that once and it made sense.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, it's
But
this.
yeah, well, sports in general, because oftentimes you can be a shitty, or acting. There you go, Hollywood. A lot of shitty
Oh
people
yeah,
in
you could
Hollywood.
be a
Yeah,
bad actor, but
yeah.
like,
But yeah, but
yeah.
and that's and actually, so this leads me to another thing that actually surprised me and everyone else who stomached the little bit of the debate we did is, everyone was like, okay, when is Flint going to call out Graham on using outdated racist theories? And apparently Flint in his own video was like, he's like, yeah, I had plans to. But the thing is, Graham did it himself. He turned around and he's like, all of you are saying that I am racist or using these racist theories, and he starts naming them off. And it's just like, well, yeah, because you're using
Why do
outdated
we say
theories.
that?
Yeah. And it's
Why do
like,
we say
yeah.
that?
And it's because you use, well, it's because of the theories he uses, like, you know, uh for example, he's a big he and his other one of his other favorite cronies, Scott Walters, who is not actually a
Oh, I got in a
geologist.
fight with him on Twitter.
Yeah, I remember. But like they like to push things like the Solutrean hypothesis, but like again, the antediluvian world with Ignatius Donnelly, and of
He's
course
our buddy.
a lot of the ideas pushed by, like, for example, the Thule Society and such, which are where a lot of the modern Atlantis ideas come from, and it's like, and Flint actually did push him on this. He's like, okay, well, he said, he's like, well, maybe you yourself are not racist, but the theories you were using
You
are.
continue to push the racist stuff.
So, and
And
you're
I'm
not,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, this is the point where I'm going to be
yeah,
zero tolerance.
yeah, exactly,
That is like being a collaborator in Nazi Germany.
exactly. And
I don't care if the Germans showed up and they're very bad and stuff.
yeah,
You're just being Vichy French. You're just
yeah,
going
yeah,
along with it because you're
yeah,
not a Nazi, but there's some good ideas being put down here. Or
exactly, yeah. You're
you're
he's
okay with
yeah.
the bullshit.
He's the people that in America that were holding rallies, in Times Square and such. And that's exactly it. It's like he's clearly
I'm listening.
cognizant.
I had to step away for a second.
That's fine.
Hold on.
He's clearly cognizant of these theories that are happening, of these people who are like, you're racist for using these theories. But he's not willing to, one, he finds it offensive that we're calling him racist, and two, he has no defense for his use of them. Which is another issue that Flint brings up, is like, you have not you have not explained why you are using them. You have not explained their origin. You can, and the thing is, there are sources that you can use back, from that time period, and you can be like, hey, this has some evidence that's useful in it, but it's important to note the reason the people wrote this. And Graham does none of that. Also, there is the company that he keeps, because he keeps a lot of very problematic people as friends. Like in his Netflix documentary, documentary air quotes, one of the experts, quote unquote experts, he brings in is a guy who, while he doesn't say any of these crazy crackpot theories in the show,
Mike or Matthew or whatever
or
his name
something
is.
like that. Yeah, Matthew. But in his book, he talks about how things like ancient white caveman aliens or something like that are the ones who created. They were Atlantis, and they're the ones who created the Europe and all this other things, and then like on and on and on. And it's like, so yeah, you yourself, Graham, may not be white. May not be racist, which I think you are, or at least closet. But the company that you keep, does. And then the fact that is, again, you can use sources from back then. There are sources like a source I have used before for other things. Jakob Grimm, he's really good for like, oh, here's what like folklore and things like that look like during in Scandinavia, for example, during the 15th and 1600s and things like that. But when I do it, I'm like, I acknowledge he was using some pretty white supremacist ideas in that thing, and you can do that. You can be like, oh, here's a paper from back then, and it has some good resources within it, but you also need to acknowledge
you need to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, exactly. Graham does none of that.
Graham does none of that.
Yeah, and that's one of the big
Graham
issues.
also doesn't take any responsibility for the fact that people are taking his
work, yeah,
and utilizing it as
a way
fodder for their bullshit.
Well, and not only that, he has said things straight up before, like, oh, yes, the Europeans are the ones who built Stonehenge, while turning around and saying, oh, but everything else outside of Europe was built by this ancient lost clothes.
Yeah.
Convenient.
So,
yeah.
In his,
yeah.
Yeah.
And
no,
so,
it's
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing,
Let's discuss something about the actual debate.
Yeah. Well, and that was in the actual debate,
Well, I mean, I want to address.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I don't have too much time left.
That's fine, yeah.
I want to cover the disingenuousness of it.
Oh, of the debate. Oh, yes, thank you. Yes.
So here's the thing about this, is that one of the things that really does stand out about this and makes the debate such, at least for me,
and for a lot of people,
a useless thing.
Yeah.
Is the fact that this was never going to be a debate to prove Graham Hancock wrong or archaeology right.
Nope.
This was absolutely a circus.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is I mean, there's a couple reasons, because I will admit I didn't watch the debate.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it. I didn't listen to it. All of my information is coming from sources being Dane, sources being other archaeologists on social media, and the things that like jump out at me about what I already know about these people.
Yeah.
Is that you have Joe Rogan is he is the debate mediator.
Yeah.
He's asking questions. He's making sure every play is nice, except for the fact that this is the Joe Rogan show.
Yeah.
This is the Joe Rogan stage. This is the Joe Rogan thing. He is a central character.
Yeah.
And he has already
bought
into the Graham Hancock shit.
Yeah.
The fact that Graham Hancock, out of all the places he could have had a debate.
Yeah.
He has it on the Joe Rogan show.
Yep.
He has it in a place with a guy, with the moderator already on his side.
Yep.
And he has it against Dibble,
Yeah.
who I know very little about. But the fact that he walked in wearing a tweed jacket
Yeah.
and a khaki shirt and an Indiana Jones hat.
Well, I will say apparently because I've watched his video and I've seen videos of him at conferences. Apparently that's how he dresses. So I will say that.
Okay. But
yeah, but still,
if he walked in wearing a baseball cap, how much do
yeah,
you want to bet they would say, "Hey, can you wear the hat?"
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
The thing that showed up to me was that this was never meant to be serious.
No.
I don't know how many people recall the 2014 debate. They knows what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Between Ken Ham
Yep.
and Bill Nye.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you have an actual scientific person, does not matter at this point, at that point, really did not matter his educational background, having only a master's.
Yeah.
But the fact that you have somebody who for 30 years had been an educator,
yeah,
and a supporter of science and continued education, schools and so forth, and someone who is, yes, a professional in his field, who is probably a PhD level, just never spent the money to get the piece of fancy paper.
Yeah.
Versus a guy who sued his insurance company because his arc-shaped building was damaged in a flood, and the insurance company denied him because he didn't have flood insurance, and it was an act of God.
Yeah.
A creationist nut job.
Yeah.
Where you have Bill Nye, who gives this guy the time of day, gives him more than Ken Ham ever deserved. And Ken says, here's the science, here's the evidence, here's what you got. And Ken Ham's response is literally, were you there?
Yeah.
It's the I know what you are, but what am I?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
And
that is what, in the few clips that I saw, being continually perpetuated from Graham.
Yeah, exactly.
Frank Dibble says, hey, A, B, C, and D. And Hancock comes back with literally the lack of evidence is evidence.
Yeah. And that's exactly the problem. Yeah.
And one of the clips that I did see, which just makes me chuckle so much, is that Graham Hancock, in his own words, in his own squeaky voice, which I absolutely hate,
said there is no evidence. Yeah.
There is no evidence.
Yep.
Then he takes a breath, and then he says, where things have been excavated.
Yeah.
Now, that right there shows disingenuousness on his part, 100%, because guess where he gets all of his information? The places that have been dug.
Yep.
And we as archaeologists acknowledge that, yeah, hey, we haven't dug everywhere. We're going to find some pretty cool shit when we get to dig everywhere.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, and this shows Graham Hancock's disconnect from the actual world of archaeology. And I'm dare I say an academic disconnect even.
Yeah.
And this is going to shine a light on the academic archaeology, because for those of you who don't know, there's 3 archaeologies, and there really should, and 2 of them are almost the same.
Yeah.
Of academic archaeology, which is the education, which is focused through educational programs, universities, stuff like that. And people spend lots of time studying one thing.
Yep.
These are where your professionals who are experts in the ancient Maya, the ancient Olmecs, the ancient peoples of Alaska, all of these places, all of these direct disciplines, that is where you find people who have spent their entire lives studying one thing or 2 things. Meanwhile, you have federal archaeology and or government archaeology and private sector archaeology, which is where Dane and I work.
Yep.
Which is the archaeology that's in front of every bridge, every road, every power line corridor, every timber sale, every building.
Yeah.
That goes in.
Yeah.
We're doing the field work. We're doing the grunt work on the ground. We would be the first ones to see any evidence of any of Graham Hancock's stuff.
And a lot of times we're sent back out to the same fucking projects we worked on.
Over and
over again. Yeah.
We are the archaeologists. And remember in the earlier part of this, if you guys are still sticking around, because we've been here a while.
Yeah.
Earlier parts where I said that there's the power line or the power fiber optic companies, the
Yeah.
power companies, the fuel, the natural resource gas and oil companies,
The
who have
DOT.
millions and millions and millions of surveys underwater across the
Yeah.
ocean.
Yeah.
There is a cultural component, where we're staring at the stuff because there is federal and state regulations in the United States, and there are government regulations in every single country around the world that aims towards cultural resources, including archaeological sites.
Yeah.
Which means you have to meet A, B,
C
and
and
D.
Yep.
Especially in the United States, because that's literally how many criteria under the National Historic Preservation Act.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
we're doing the work. We're doing.
Yeah.
I will be willing to say that I do more field work than in 1 year than an academic does in 5.
Yeah, I would say so.
Does that mean the academic is incorrect? No.
No.
That just means I'm doing more dirt work.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is that Graham Hancock looks at an academic, Dibble,
Yeah.
and ignores me, ignores Dane, ignores Paleo Monitor and Archaeologist and Archaeo Barbie and every one of these creators on social media.
Yeah.
Every one of these creators, not even creators, any one of these professionals in the field who haven't lowered themselves to be on social media.
Yeah.
All of these records.
Yeah.
You know, I live in Montana. You know how many archaeological sites are in Montana?
Oh yeah.
59,792.
Yeah,
and that is what's been recorded. That's not what continually gets recorded. That was the last time I looked at the SHPO website.
Yeah, same in Georgia. Georgia has a lot too. Yeah.
You have everywhere archaeological work is being done, even in the smallest degree. Let's dig a trench from this block to this block, 40 yards in Tempe, Arizona.
Yeah.
There's an archaeologist looking at that because there's so much cultural material there. They were required by law to do so.
Yeah, exactly.
Graham Hancock conveniently ignores every single bit.
Well, and not just that. There's another subset of archaeology that I think is important to remember, and it goes along with public education. Public archaeology, where archaeologists go out and teach the public, and most of the time they are people who like work at museums or historic sites, and they teach the public about archaeology. They're the ones who hold the demonstrations of the fucking atlatl and show you how to throw it. And like, this is how
I kind of fold them into the CRM, cultural resource management,
and that's fair.
Group,
yeah, exactly.
That's me.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's a fair point. But you know, that's the thing, and which also again goes back to Graham is saying archaeologists are hiding things when it's like, no, we're literally making there's a subset of archaeology that really
going out of our way
to show it and educate people on it and on the things.
I have 300,000 followers. 370,000 followers on TikTok.
Exactly.
This is not me waving saying, look at me, I'm important. I have that many people who want to learn.
Exactly.
And when I make content, I'm teaching.
Yeah.
So
I've been to my son.
The idea of hiding, the idea of you're not telling the truth. Now, to be fair, the pseudoscience accounts, because they're exciting, have millions of followers.
Yeah, and that's fair, but you know, but it doesn't change the fact that, like, say,
it's asinine, but it's me.
Yeah. Well, it is asinine, but that's my point. It's like it doesn't change the fact that. For example, I've been to my son's school multiple times to talk about fucking archaeology. I taught my younger brothers, I taught the archaeology merit badge at my younger brother's fucking Boy Scout camp.
But you're hiding it.
I'm hiding it. You know, I've been to conferences in, you know, not just like archaeology conferences. I've been to like other conferences that are not archaeology related and presented and on and on and on. And so there's that. But also one of the big issues that I think, you know, talking about the farce and how it's set, you know, it's a spectacle and set up. One of the things that a mutual of ours, Howard Williams, Archaeodeath, brought up was
go follow him on various social media.
On various shows, But one of the things he brought up, he's like, it was essentially, you know, what makes it pointless is it was essentially just his phrase was two eccentric individuals arguing in circles at each other, and that's essentially what it was. And now I watch Flint Dibble's like follow-up video on his YouTube channel, and he goes into the evidence. But you know, it's like the thing is, this is my whole big point is like I agree with a lot of people that debating these people is pointless, but it's not because we're quote validating them. It's because you're not going to change their fucking
It's a waste of
minds.
time.
It's a
Because
waste of
again,
time.
and again, like with this debate,
Yeah,
Dibble went to his YouTube channel after the fact to explain himself.
yeah,
What
exactly.
he should have been allowed to do and was not allowed to do
Yeah,
is throw all of that on the table during the debate.
exactly. And he wasn't
You know,
allowed to do that. And that's yeah,
because it was scripted.
yeah,
Here's me being the anti-conspiracy theorist.
yeah,
It was scripted.
yeah,
Joe Rogan his got his ratings, got his
yeah,
podcast, got his stuff.
yeah,
Graham Hancock got his moment in the sun, his ability to continue saying archaeology is against me, and this fake flag to wave over, I won.
yeah,
But the point is that he's got now a bigger footprint and people who are like, you're right, you stood up to them. And Dibble, who went there again in good enough faith to actually like try to educate, try to prove wrong in the way that,
yeah,
hey, this is a court case, not a fucking favorites gala,
yeah,
got to be the clown.
yeah,
And I say that because even before
yeah,
I saw any of my co-creators on any of the social medias do anything about this, before you reached out to me to do this particular
yeah,
podcast,
yeah,
before anything, the first thing I saw was asinine, ignorant fucking commentary from the
yeah,
Graham Hancock fanboys
yeah,
on some post on Instagram that came across my feed. And it was he looks like he's on drugs. He's been smoking since 1971. It was
yeah,
all of this derogatory stuff aimed towards Dibble.
yeah,
Meanwhile, Graham Hancock has flat fucking admitted that he gets his ideas from smoking ayahuasca,
yeah,
or however you take
completely.
it, because I don't know, because get this, it's an indigenous mind altering, culturally important substance, and I've
That
not been invited to participate in
that
such thing.
that that has was originally only used by a very specific subset of a very
Of
specific
a
set of
culture
culture. Yeah,
that I was not invited to participate in. Meanwhile, Graham
exactly.
Hancock
Yeah,
is doing I smoke it, I get my ideas from it, I learn all this stuff from it, and they invited me, but no one's around to actually
actually,
confirm that I went.
exactly.
And
And
that's the basis of one of his books.
yeah,
I sat down with the indigenous elders
yeah,
and I smoked some drug and I learned things. That's
yeah,
literally one of the premises of his books. But guess what? If you actually say, Graham, yo, buddy, who said so? Who
yeah,
invited you? Where did you go? He's gonna hide behind they swore me to secrecy.
yeah,
I can't identify them.
yeah,
They're all dead now.
yeah,
Every single excuse to actually to get out of the well, yes, I did it. Here's proof that I did it. And in the case of archaeology, in the case of science, in the general whole, yes, that's something you have to show.
yeah. You completely do. Well, because for one thing, there's a subset of anthropology, not just archaeology, called ethnography, where you actually talk about the people that you fucking talk with in these communities.
Right?
And that's another thing. He's always like, oh, but I can't talk about them because because they're afraid because people are going to they're going to be attacked or archaeologists against them or as he said multiple
Which
times in multiple
is a
documentaries.
convenient
Yeah,
excuse.
yeah,
Which
and
is a convenient excuse.
as he said in multiple documentaries, nobody's willing to listen to indigenous voices, which is okay. Well, let me say this.
Bullshit.
Bullshit, but that's
I'm
also
sorry.
yeah,
How loud can I yell, Dane?
yeah,
How loud can I yell on this
oh,
podcast?
completely.
That's absolutely fucking
Bullshit.
bullshit.
It's complete bullshit. In
That
fact,
is,
there are Native American archaeologists. Oh my
well,
god.
don't acknowledge them,
Yeah.
Dane. Don't acknowledge them because Graham Hancock says there can't be.
Yeah. There can't be.
They owe all of their stuff to white people,
Yeah, they
according to
all
Graham
yeah.
Hancock.
Yeah.
The idea that the indigenous peoples of the world, not just the
Yeah.
United States, not just North America, not just South America, the world.
World. Yeah.
And here's where I'm going to piss off some people: the indigenous peoples of Europe.
Yeah. Oh,
who
you mean
vaguely look like this.
oh, you mean the Sami? You know, it's like for one thing.
Well,
You
well,
know,
I mean,
yeah,
my hiccup with the idea that you have to be in order to be indigenous, you have to not have this appearance
yeah, yeah,
is stupid. But the thing is that when you have people who have a cultural background,
yeah, exactly.
regardless of cultural background,
Yeah,
regardless of their belief system or their way they dress, there
yeah,
are some things that they're not wanting to share. And
yeah,
that's their prerogative because that's like if you look at a culture like a family,
yeah,
I don't want to share things about my family with you, Dane. You're my buddy.
exactly,
I don't want to share certain things.
exactly.
You
Yeah,
don't want to share certain things with me.
exactly.
Cultures don't want stuff just thrown out there about them,
Yeah,
which is why they might be reticent about not sharing.
yeah, exactly.
There are things out of pure respect that people in our field, professionals in our field, one have to acknowledge for legal and financial and socially acceptable
Social
reasons,
reasons. Yeah,
which are big drivers in the world of things.
yeah,
But at the same time, the basic human factor of it's the decent fucking thing to do,
yeah,
we don't share. We
yeah.
don't just throw out there and we don't assume
No,
to
yeah,
be a part of. I will share with you a story. This may
yeah,
seem farcical, but I will share with
yeah.
you a story.
Okay.
When I was working in the Southwest,
Mhm.
I made friends with an archaeologist who was Navajo.
Yeah,
He was an archaeologist first, and he was an archaeologist first, a person second. He was indigenous like 34th down the line. That was not a factor of me being friends or respecting him.
yeah, yeah,
The thing is, though, is that I got invited, legitimately got invited to go sweat
yeah,
in a sweat lodge with him and a couple of the other archaeologists who were tribal. And I passed. I said, I'm sorry, I can't.
yeah,
Mostly because I wasn't sure professionally if that was a good idea.
yeah,
Professionally, as somebody, as an archaeologist, like, it, would this make me think of the world that I'm working in differently? Would this? It was a sign of respect from them.
yeah,
It was an invitation. And at the same time, I was like, I will not, as a person, understand
yeah,
the entire thing that would make this truly special. Perhaps when I'm more of a grown up. I don't know.
yeah,
But the point is that I passed, and I did not assume that I had a background or a standing or a
yeah.
right
To do it. Yeah,
to participate. So when Graham Hancock comes out with the smoked with the tribal elders and I learned the secrets, I'm sorry, fucking what?
yeah,
Some pasty
exactly.
ass British squidgy journalist who he would show up to the meeting with the tribal elders with crotch stains and pit stains because he's sweating too much because the malaria's got him,
Yeah,
and being invited sight fucking unseen into something that's very culturally important.
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sorry. I worked with this guy for 2 years
Mhm.
before I got remotely invited to anything.
Exactly, exactly.
And that's one of the things you really got to take into context here is that th- that there has been a presentation of archaeologists as bad. There's been a presentation of archaeologists being racist. That is not in dispute.
No,
100 years ago, absolutely. 50 years ago, 50-50. Today, at the forefront of pushing shit like the new NAGPRA regulations. So
yeah,
right there, not arguing with them in the slightest. And when you have someone like Graham Hancock come along and say, you're hiding stuff, you don't believe these things, blah, 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 completely
yeah,
dismiss all of that, and then go on to say, you guys don't listen to the indigenous people, and in the same voice say, the indigenous people themselves couldn't do it?
yeah,
Well, he must be on ayahuasca or whatever drug he's on because that makes no fucking sense.
yeah, exactly. And then again, you know, we are listening to these people. There are multiple books written on it. And this is in the 15 to 20 or so papers that I shared, because I'm not going to count all the things on my tab, you know, did, all of this did not, this took me about 20 to 30 minutes just to find these. These were not, that it was not hard at all to
It's not
find this
difficult to
stuff.
find.
Now, some of it, again, yes,
Hancock could have done it.
yes, again, accessibility sometimes, unfortunately, is a bitch. I have had, we've like gone to a JSTOR or, a ResearchGate article or something like that. It's like, oh, it's not available or you have to pay for it. But
You have to pay for it.
even then, I was still able to find all these articles, and 99% of them were easily accessible, which is, again, and Hancock knows it. And the thing is, that still doesn't change the fact that this whole debate was pointless and a farce, and was part of the reason why. Yeah, it was a circus. And so, like, and that's what we're talking about. Like, at the very beginning, we made sure to point out this, like, hey, there are some archaeologists who were rightfully saying that it was pointless, but they were saying it was pointless for the wrong reasons. Graham Hancock has already validated. What we should be saying is, why are we bothering? Because he's not going to listen anyway. Because, again, to quote the South Park episode, essentially all Graham Hancock did in that entire episode was act like the South Park episode, that South Park was making fun of you and your ancient aliens cronies, you fucking idiot.
I am what you are, but what am I?
Am I? Yeah. He was just like, his exact words were like, we can't prove that they weren't there. And it's just like, and
congratulations.
Yeah.
Archaeologists can't prove they weren't there either. You know what we don't do is say they were.
Yeah, exactly. And that's and that's the big issues. It was to quote Howard Woos again, it was two eccentric individuals who were arguing in circles. And while I do think, having the bit I've skipped around, think that Dibble won the argument, and that Rogan, at least on paper, seemed to be coming around to Dibble's points and was actually beginning to call Hancock out, I don't think it's going to last, and
it's not going to last.
And Hancock's cronies are not going to change their minds. Hancock clearly didn't.
Hancock has more money.
Yeah, has more money, and
if you guys want to accuse me of conspiracy theory bullshit because of that, go for it. Hancock has more money.
And the thing
Dibble is an academic who is going to go back to his academic job.
Yeah,
and keep making videos on YouTube. Meanwhile, Graham Hancock has a big TV show, and it's the dick measuring contest.
It's really what it is. It really is what it is. It's momentous because, in the sense that Hancock actually agreed to finally do a debate when he kept refusing for decades. So somewhere in Gehenna, the Christian hell, whatever you want to call it, there are snowballs falling. But even then, it's largely it was a farce. That's all I gotta say.
It was a farce. It was, the whole thing was a farce. He didn't want to do debate for years under the guise of, oh, you guys are going to listen to me. And then he finally he got enough notoriety to where he was like, well, I'll debate you guys. And then nobody wanted to play in his sandbox, and they're like, then he used that. He's a marketing genius.
Yeah, he's a marketing genius.
He used that and was like, well, see, they don't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
And how many followers and book sales did he generate from that, I wonder?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure a lot.
And then when a bunch of people said, I'll debate you, he'd back down.
Yeah.
And then finally, when he got the person he wanted to.
Yeah.
Who, no offense to Dibble in the slightest, but appears as a caricature.
Yeah, character. Yeah. So it's
of the tweedy academic in the hat.
Yeah, which and it's just
and then you get this debate, which just turns into I know what you are, but what am I?
Yeah,
it's a circling. Nothing actually gets sorted out. Nothing really that's going to stick anyway.
And Dibble, there were a lot of points that, like, a lot of opportunities Dibble had that he did not take.
Yeah.
Now,
and why didn't he take them?
Yeah, and that's
because the man is not an unintelligent person.
No, he's not.
Why didn't he take them?
Which is exactly
why we know it was scripted.
Yeah,
because I mean,
yeah,
I offered to debate him. I wrote both to, I believe the producer's name is Matthew, and Joe Rogan himself on the website. Hey, I will debate. Why don't you have an actual professional in these fields debating this guy.
Yeah.
Why don't you're listening to one side, why aren't you listening to the other? I sent him probably a couple of emails. And I never got a response. And the
Exactly.
reason why, partially because I'm a nobody, but
Yeah.
two, I wouldn't play by the rules.
Yeah.
Because when I stand here as a professional in this field and I look at what Graham Hancock's stuff does, I have no problem looking at the man and be like, why are you selling racist bullshit?
Yeah, and that's another point that I
Why
want
are
to
you
point out.
believing?
Yeah.
Why are you continuing to push stuff that absolutely has no evidence?
Yeah. And
Why are you
that's
such a
yeah.
damn leech?
And that's my
Because
point. And that's my point because one of my biggest quibbles is a lot of people were like, "Oh, Flint Dibble actually went there in good faith and he was civil." I'm just like, okay, but this is the thing that, again, to quote Howard Williams,
zero tolerance policy shouldn't have
yeah,
been.
yeah, and that's what Howard Williams has said. He's like, people have been like, "Oh, we should be civil with these people," and Howard Williams himself has been like, "No, because it being civil doesn't solve anything.
Doesn't get us anywhere."
Yeah,
It's the I've seen this. You've probably seen this.
yeah.
Academics don't need to use profane language.
Yeah, they don't need to use profane language because we sound.
Absolutely, we do.
We do.
It's
Yeah,
called an enunciator. It
yeah,
helps purvey the importance of what we're saying. So to be
exactly.
perfectly fucking honest, the fucking thing we should do is say the fucking thing. And
Yeah,
I said profanity through all of that, but you know what?
yeah,
I've come across as
yeah.
you know that I'm talking. You
Mhm,
know that I'm saying
exactly.
something. You're not able to
Exactly.
go, oh, he's just making some. No. I
Yeah,
used an enunciator, which is part of linguistics, and linguistics is a field in anthropology, as is archaeology.
yeah.
Using a profanity in the middle of language is not a lessening of academia. It is using the palette of everything that is given to us.
And actually, most academics cuss anyway, so fuck
Oh,
off.
most academics cuss like fucking sailors.
Sailors,
Most
yeah.
academics also drink. We are
And
wildly outgoing. We also
yeah,
hate people.
yeah, exactly.
Academics, especially in the field of archaeology, being that this is what I know,
Yeah,
uh, we're anthropologists. We're
yeah,
archaeology is under the umbrella of anthropology in the United States. A lot of people might not know that.
yeah,
Anthropology is the study of people. Archaeology is the study of people and their things.
yeah.
You go to England, you can get a degree in specifically archaeology. In the United States, you get a degree in anthropology. Your focus is archaeology.
Archaeology, yep.
Well,
And yeah,
we're
and
humans and we're living a
yeah,
human life and we're experiencing it. And I guarantee you, every single person is going, I'm using what I learn and I'm paying attention to how I'm experiencing the world. And I'm going to experience other things so I can put this in my toolbox of
yeah,
interpretation.
yeah. And that's
Any
my
archaeologist who
yeah,
looks at the bottom of the glass in the bar going,
yeah,
look at the maker's mark,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and which is actually something we do when we find glass objects from historic period.
Oh
And
yeah.
it,
And I
and
also never miss a $20 bill in the parking lot because I'm always watching the ground as I survey.
exactly. And that's
You know,
yeah, and that's the thing is like is Dibble, he missed a lot of opportunities because he wasn't aggressive enough. Like what
he wasn't
because
aggressive enough, and I'm sure that in order to be on the show,
yeah, he
because you got to
sure
remember,
yeah,
this show, Joe Rogan's show,
yeah,
is not run by Joe Rogan saying, I want these two guys to get into a grudge match. It
yeah,
is run by the investors. It is run by the
yeah.
producers. It is run by the people who throw money at it.
And
They,
we can't let one of our regulars get attacked,
yeah, I guarantee you, if they had a guest on who is super extreme,
Yeah,
all right, let's say is not the right color and
yeah.
cannot use and should not be using the N word, but uses it every other word,
Oh,
they would not have that person
yeah,
on the show.
yeah.
They would
And
not have the person saying we must kill all babies. We would not
no,
have the person saying, they would not have the super extremes. If you've noticed, Joe Rogan, despite the fact that he's a bit out there, hasn't had the guy saying Hitler was right or the Holocaust was a fake.
yeah,
Joe Rogan does not have anything to say about that. It's the people bankrolling his shit.
exactly. And
So
yeah, which is
this
also
was
why, yeah, which is
a
why
this
Flint
was a
Dibble,
here's what you can do.
yeah.
Here's what you can't do.
And that's probably, and that may be very well why, because one of the things that I noticed with the clip that annoys me the most about a missed opportunity is to go back to, the thing about Randall Carlson and the Scabland floods is Flint Dibble was like, oh, but that's just one spot, and then he sort of lets Graham and Joe Rogan steer him away from that, and it's like, no, you need to be like,
No.
you need to be
Focus
like,
on that.
you need to be like, Randall is full of fucking shit. He lied for years about his fucking degrees, just like his crony Scott Walters, who claimed he had a master's degree in forensic geology. Then, when people started calling the university he was claiming to get his degree from, turns out he never went there. Same thing happened to Randall.
Hey, did you see this? This is a
Yeah,
tangent. You see
yeah,
this?
yeah.
I got my own Knights Templar tome,
Oh, great. Yeah.
just like
Bye.
Scott Walter.
Yeah.
It doesn't have Knights Templar stuff in it. I didn't spend that extra $20, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then but that's the point. It's like he should
I've
have
got a
been able to
breakdown of my D&D character. I mean,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. But like that's exactly what he should have done is, pushed on the Randall Carlson thing. He should have pushed on Graham Hancock on any of the other things I showed in these things. I chose these papers, every single one of these papers,
for a
for a
reason.
reason. He's like, oh, the things got washed away. Dibble was like, okay, but we still have,
But we still have
ephemeral.
microblades, which
Well,
I
he
don't,
said micro.
guys, I don't
Well,
know if you don't
yeah,
know
well,
how light some of these artifacts are.
well, and Dibble, to his credit, said that to a degree. He's like, oh, we have ephemeral things like footprints and things like that, but he still left it at that. He didn't go into like, okay, but we found ships, we found this and that, and this is like I did here. It's like we found in Doggerland, we found all these things, and that's
If
why,
if
yeah,
we had,
yeah,
because we're gonna have to tie this up pretty quick.
yeah, we are going to. I'm in the process of doing that, but he's like,
But
but
see,
that's
here's the thing: is
yeah,
if we did this and
yeah,
made Graham Hancock stand on the other side of the
yeah,
podium,
yeah,
he would have nothing to say.
yeah,
He would
and
have
that's
no way to come
exactly it.
back because we're speaking unfiltered.
Yeah,
We're speaking with no script.
nope,
We're speaking with no plan. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I was under the impression we were going to have more archaeologists here.
yeah,
I didn't know
I
how many people were showing up.
Well, and
I
I
didn't know
thought
how
so
many,
too. Well, and I
you
thought so
know,
too, but it was
and
impromptu.
that's not a
Yeah,
detriment to our
yeah,
discussion.
yeah,
But the point is that we did not walk in here with an idea of here's our 50 questions and we're going to address these 50 questions and
no,
you have 5 seconds to address each 50 question and walk into it with a producer
yeah,
whispering in our ear,
yeah.
which is guaranteed what happened with this fucking debate.
I almost guarantee it is what happened because
Joe Rogan,
yeah,
who out of everyone who shouldn't be the moderator,
yeah,
he shouldn't have been the moderator. He shouldn't have been. It shows it is, you know how much ethics training I have to go through?
yeah,
That's literally, you can't show favoritism by accepting a cup of coffee from a contractor.
exactly, yeah,
And Joe Rogan expects to have a good conversation, being the moderator of the show.
yeah,
No, Shadow, produced by Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's podcast. Joe Rogan's sitting in the corner being like, I'm a presence, but having somebody else ask the questions.
yeah,
That would have been better. That would have shown that this isn't just some sort of circle jerk. This
yeah.
would have shown that it wasn't a production for views and listeners.
Or yeah, at the very least, it could have. There are a number of large scale YouTube debate
Yeah.
channels, like say
How
Modern
much did
Debate.
Hancock get
Yeah,
paid?
yeah. How much did Hancock get paid? How
Because
much?
Hancock won't do an appearance without getting paid.
Yeah, exactly. And which is another thing. It's like he's like he's like, I'm just asking questions while also making a fuck ton of money
While
off
also
of
making
yeah.
a fuck ton of money. And
And
no one seems, and every time we say something about that, people are like, you're just jealous of the money. Well, yeah, so are you,
yeah,
faceless individual on social media. But
yeah,
the
yeah,
point is, and I mean, I'll say it again.
yeah,
There's more than money.
yeah,
There's more driving forces to do this job and be in this field than money.
yeah,
Because guess what? I could have done it.
yeah,
I was approached by the media to do a thing. I was approached by producers to become a personality.
Yep.
And I said, what's the actual educational television world look like? And I'm sorry, I cannot participate in this conspiracy theory, pseudoscientific bull.
Bullshit. Yeah, exactly. And that
And
is the
what do
big
you
issue.
know?
Yeah.
2 years have passed since that particular meeting with the guys
Yeah.
from American
Yeah.
Chainsaw or whatever it was. And guess what?
Yep. No call. Yeah.
No call, no television show, no personality
Yeah.
on, in social media bigger than what I am, and
Yeah.
no chance to go toe to toe with
Yeah.
pseudoscience crap like
Which,
this.
yeah, and it's like, yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, so, and that's unfortunately the
I'm
issue,
not
which also,
interested in doing. I'm not interested in doing the conspiracy theory stuff. What about doing educational TV? And they didn't call
yeah, where's the call from PBS or any other, it's like,
with their
yeah,
shoestring budget. Probably not there.
probably not there. Yeah.
BBC, they don't care about shit in Montana.
Yeah, exactly. And
Plus, they have
that's,
like
yeah,
Tash Archeo and all of those other professional archaeologists who
yeah,
are in media, are
yeah,
in production, but they're in a country that you can't just be way off fucking in left field
yeah.
for entertainment value.
Hmm.
You have to produce stuff. Time Team is a great archaeological TV show. For all the archaeologists who are going to be like, actually, it's not, you're right. There's aspects of it that are not. But at the same time, measure it against what we have in the US, which is
Yeah.
ancient aliens.
Yeah, which is ancient
It,
aliens and America unearthed.
unearthed or American pickers.
Or American pickers or
I got to make a buck
Oak
on it.
Island
It's like,
or Oak Island. You know.
oh yeah, yeah. The Oak
Yeah.
Island. The island is only the size of a postage stamp. They have dug the entire thing and they haven't found shit.
I know, exactly. And so yeah. So and that's exactly it. And that's what we're trying to get at here is that this there I don't know what happened, but Morgan when Morgan brought this to me, this idea that it seemed staged. I had not drawn that conclusion myself, but he's exactly right. It's like because and this is something that I have pointed out and that Howard Williams pointed out. It's like it seemed like it was a farce and it was just here we go to use a phrase that people say archaeologists don't use. It was essentially a giant fucking circle jerk. It
Yeah.
was and that's all it was. And again, I'm going to beat this home as much as possible because it is the thing that annoyed me in the few clips that I saw, and is that Flint Dibble missed a lot of opportunities, and that is one of the driving factors that made me want to do this was to address those missed opportunities here and these things, and then to address
And
the
I would be
interview
willing to
itself.
bet that
Yeah,
if you pushed
yeah,
and you had a conversation with him off the record,
yeah,
he would confirm that.
yeah, exactly.
Because when you get into the world of TV shows, you're not allowed to talk about stuff.
Yeah,
You're not allowed to
exactly.
share things because this is all money.
It's all it is, and
You
it's
know,
yeah,
uh,
and so
I mean the talking points that I was given for my big interview with the producers
yeah,
says on the bottom of the paper, not for public dissemination. This email, if you open this email, you accept or you are essentially assigning a DNR or a whatever a
yeah,
non-disclosure agreement,
yeah, an NDA, yeah,
and it's money,
yeah, it's money.
you know. So guaranteed, you could ask him all day long, and he's going to say no, no, no. But at the same time, you ask him, say, hey, man, between you and me as professionals in the field, buddies buying each other a beer,
Yeah,
how staged was it? He'll tell you the story, but as long as you don't tell anybody.
yeah, exactly, and that's the big issue. And
And
the
there's a
thing is,
lawyer somewhere for Joe
yeah,
Rogan's outfit big enough who's going, I'm
to
not going to go after Dibble, but I'll go after the guy he had beers with in the bar who
exactly,
signed an NDA by hearing the conversation or whatever
yeah,
bit
or
of
some
legal
shit like
jargon they
that, yeah.
throw at you.
And I
So,
don't think and I want to end this with we don't, or at least I don't personally think that Flint Dibble is a bad person or a bad archaeologist at
no,
all. But I do
not the
think that
slightest.
I do think that there are some things that seem very, very fishy, or at the very least, and or very, at the same time,
Staged.
staged and farcical. It seems very farcical, and it was a waste of time that did not validate Graham, but it wasted the time because it didn't change anyone's mind. There was one group of people who, both archaeologists and not, who already believed the evidence, and then there are the group of people who didn't and believed Graham Hancock's, little serum that can cure fucking everything, snake oil, and that was it. And
That
and,
guy
and I
nuts.
and again, and most people, even people who were not uh fans of archaeologists, have come out and said that they think that Flint won the debate, of course with the exception of Graham's cronies, but it was still pointless because again, those people were going to think that anyway. And so
they're not going to change their minds.
yeah,
And Graham Hancock certainly is not going to throw up a white flag and say, "Hey,
no,
he made a bunch." I mean,
he
there was an archaeologist, and this was on
yeah,
Milo's show.
yeah,
The archaeologist whose expertise is the pyramid
yeah,
and the complex there in Cholula.
yeah,
Um, One, they didn't tell him that Graham Hancock was involved in the show, and they got him
yeah,
involved in the show. The producers didn't.
yeah,
And Graham Hancock had a sit down with this guy who's unequivocally one of the experts about this site, listens to him 100% and goes, "Oh, this is very interesting," and then proceeds to go off, get filmed, and say the exact opposite
opposite,
bullshit.
yeah,
They cut up the guy's interview to make it sound like he supported what Graham Hancock was
yeah.
saying. And then Graham Hancock is no longer allowed in Malta, the country.
He's no longer allowed in Serpent Mountains either.
Yeah,
You know,
Serpent Mounds. He didn't get his permit for Serpent Mounds because Serpent Mounds is a government installation, guys.
yeah,
Garnet Ghost Town is a government installation. You can't just show up to do a video. You have to file for a permit because you're going to be making money off of that video, and you have to buy the permit, which is $20.
yeah,
The problem is that Graham Hancock, the producers, applied for the permit.
yeah.
Graham Hancock had nothing to do with that. He doesn't involve himself in the day-to-day of
No,
the plebes who are doing the grunt work.
no,
But Netflix reached out and said, "Hey, the producers wanted to get a permit to film at Serpent Mounds." And Serpent Mounds, the people in charge of Serpent Mounds came back with this statement of, "No,
yeah,
this is a culturally important place for X tribes," because I forget the names,
yeah,
"who view this as a sacred place. This is a place of their ancestors. The individual you are filming with, the show that you're producing, does not concur with the archaeological evidence nor the cultural evidence
yeah,
of the peoples who value this site and whose site was built and whose ancestors built this site.
yeah.
Plus, we can't just shut down a national landmark that sees 50,000 people a
People
week.
to
So you can
film.
have it for 3 days, and Graham Hancock can walk around by some trees because he can't see the mounds without being above them, and wave his hands and talk some shit.
Yeah, exactly.
You should have called us earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
And Graham Hancock read the letter in front of the sign at Serpent Mounds. And when that happened, when I saw that, and he posted the letter on his website with the woman's name and email address.
Oh, so he doxed her essentially.
I reached out to the Serpent Mounds,
Yeah,
the outfit that runs Serpent Mounds, and I said, "Hey," and I got a completely different person because apparently the other person had to leave because of Graham Hancock.
yeah. Which is
And
exactly.
they said, "We neither confirm or deny." They gave me the canned government response, which is what I expected. But at the same time, it's incredibly telling
Mhm.
because I was going to make some content on it.
Yeah,
And they told me no.
yeah,
And
exactly.
they told me no for whatever reasons that falls into the bylaws and falls into the cultural, the cultural recognition and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, this they already have been bombarded by the nut jobs that believe in
Yeah.
Graham Hancock. Because Graham
Yeah.
Hancock put the entirety of the letter, including the woman's name, her position, and her email address.
And he knew what he was doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because he and that's the
Because
thing.
he doesn't run his website either.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. He's too big. He guaranteed doesn't run his website. He has a minion for that. And that
Yeah.
minion has to operate within the realm of the law. Guaranteed, if this woman turned around and saw that, she could probably sue his ass.
Yeah. and for all we know, it may be happening. But and you know that's I
Well,
think
I got
that's a good,
screenshots showing the letter is still on his website. So,
yeah.
but that was from a
Well,
while ago. It may have changed.
yeah. Well, no, actually, so I think this is a good ending point. So, you know, good ending point because Graham Hancock, even in during the debate, talked about how archaeologists are out to get him. Archaeologists are putting him in danger. Archaeologists are doing this, that, and the other. Yet he turns around and he puts this woman in danger
On
and
blast.
on blast, and he sends his notoriously combative followers after her.
After her.
And yet
And
in
she's
this,
not an archaeologist.
and she's not an archaeologist.
She's the PR person. She
She's
was
the
the PR
PR.
person for a
Exactly. And
national monument. That's
yet,
like sending bad
yeah,
hate mail to the
yeah,
person who's in charge of Mount Rushmore or
yeah,
the Lincoln
exactly.
Memorial. I mean,
Exactly. And
the
he's
person who's
saying,
involved, the person who's in charge of Graceland and the Elvis
yeah,
Museum.
exactly. Yet he's saying that archaeologists are evil for, you know, for quote
And
ostracizing
he
and attacking
literally is
people, and
throwing
he's doing
some
the
woman's
same thing.
information out there
And he's doing the same thing
for views.
for views. And
Views.
that's exactly the thing. And so that's, you know, and it's connected to the debate. I feel like something happened that maybe made Flint be like, okay, maybe I can't be as aggressive as I am because something like that may happen. And
And that's the producers.
that's the
Or,
producers or
you know,
something
that's the
else.
producers for one, but also the
Graham,
blowback.
the blowback.
And
So, and I
and you
have no way
know,
to prove this, but I have a feeling. And it's, you know, and
well, see,
personally, and for me,
whoa,
yeah,
pause.
okay.
You have no way to prove that, but you have a
That's
feeling.
and that's fair. That's a fair point.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the entirety of Graham Hancock's
Hancock's
argument.
argument. That's the entirety of Graham
I
Hancock's
have
argument.
no proof, but I have an opinion.
And I'm not going to state it's true, but you know, the difference is unlike Graham, I'm not gonna, you know, state that it's true. I'm just saying,
But you
you know,
absolutely could, though. See, that's the thing, is that you
that
absolutely could state that it's true and put a lot of weight behind it. Because if we're going to measure the metrics based on how
yeah,
Graham does stuff and how
yeah,
we do stuff, that's exactly how he does stuff. So why can't we?
exactly.
That's
And
obviously me being over the top and aggressive. And I think
yeah,
we've all at this point understood that I do not like the guy.
no, I hate the guy
Neither
too.
does Dane.
Yeah.
And
And
I want, as in our closing, I want everybody who's listened to this to take that in consideration.
yeah.
And because we're human beings,
Hmm.
and you know, there is emotion going here, there is frustration, there's anger,
Yeah.
there's all this stuff that does tie into how we are presenting.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that we're not being neutral
No.
and trying to measure 50-50 for one and the other.
No.
We're definitely front loading because we don't like Graham.
Yeah,
The
we want
problem with the regardless of the problem being is that Graham has all this stuff to front load and Dibble doesn't.
yeah, exactly.
You know, we can pick apart the Graham argument all day long.
Yeah.
There are going to be people who are like, well, you don't like him, so that's the first thing why you don't like him.
Yeah.
Understand that I recognize that. Dane recognizes that.
Yeah. We
We're
recognize
not
that.
this well, holy shit, we recognize it.
Yeah.
I think that's something more than Graham Hancock does.
Even though Graham Hancock certainly does that as well because he doesn't like archaeologists and he does the exact
He
same
doesn't like
thing.
archaeologists. He makes a lot of money off of bashing us. Plus, even if, and this is giving him way too much credit.
Yeah.
Even if he had a foot to stand on in the world of archaeology and any evidence towards his civilization,
Yeah.
instead of saying, I am aware that
Yeah.
here are my shortcomings, here is what I don't have, here are the things that I have to surmount to show that, yes, I'm right.
Yeah, exactly.
Making an acknowledgement is so much further down, is so much, goes so much more to showing a willingness
Yeah.
to be flexible in respect to learning things, and it removes the I'm just right.
Yeah. And that's exactly how he phrases it. He believes
You
he
know,
is right, and it's yeah. And so yeah.
it,
So
it is
we'll
something he puts in. I will
yeah,
say he does put into a lot of his stuff in my opinion.
yeah.
But
And
at the
that's
same time, it's like
but his opinion is law, you know.
yeah, his opinion's law. And the moment you say, well, hey, can you prove this? 50,000 years ago, they had electric drills, in his opinion.
Yeah.
Graham,
Prove it.
they make the electric drills. You're out to get me.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm
it's
asking a question about how they made the technology, man. I want you to tell me.
archaeologists haven't looked for it yet. Yet we as archaeologists can find fucking pieces of ceramic at the bottom of
We
the
haven't
ocean.
looked for it, but the
Yeah.
piece of evidence that he's showing was found by archaeologists in 2005.
Yeah, exactly. And
You
so
know,
yeah. And there we
the
get there we
man is
go again. Yeah. And there we go again. That's the issue with the debate is it went in circles and we're going in circles again.
we're going in circles. Yeah. No, we should have wrapped this up,
Yeah.
15 minutes ago.
And so yeah, so that's so I think that's the big takeaway. Is like we is it's we can do this all day and we have done it a
We've
long
done it for
time.
2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours
Three.
and almost 3 hours. Yeah. And the thing is, and we have debunked so many of the things, and we could do that all day. And that's the issue is the debate itself went around in circles, appears to be staged. There were missed opportunities, and Graham could not answer any of the questions, nor could he answer any of these. So with that, we'll leave it at that and leave the viewers up to decide, you know, you know, what the sources here say. If you have the stomach and want to get plastered enough to try and watch the full 5 hour fucking debate,
Please, if you're
yeah,
going to have a drink and watch the actual debate,
yeah,
take care of yourself. Drink
yeah,
water. Don't just down a fifth of
exactly.
vodka.
And
Take care of yourself because it's not worth your health.
yeah, and that's
And thank you
exactly
for
it. Yeah.
listening to us because
And
we've
thank
been
you, listen.
rambling, but
Yeah, we've been rambling, and that's what we tend to do as archaeologists in general. Um, and that's just it. Just that's just it. Hope you learned something from the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have the stomach, go watch the debate. But remember, this is a good. These are the reasons why Graham is wrong, and we have a lot of good reasons to believe that this was a staged debate of some sort.
yeah, 100%.
So with that, everyone, thank you for coming on. Thank you,
Thank you
Morgan, for
for
coming on again.
hanging
Yeah,
out.
yep.
Thanks, Dane, for having me.
And I hope you all have a
Follow
good night.
Dane at his socials.
Yeah, follow me at my
Follow
socials.
me at mine.
Yeah, and
Uh,
follow some of the other people we mentioned, like Howard Williams, Archaeodeath, and hope you all have a good evening and a good day. So, all right,
take
and
care.
bye.